Senators beat the Blues by a score of 8-1. Boston has the puck, and that'll do it. Blues fall to the Bruins 3-2, and they've lost 3 in a row. Peterka in now with the extra man back on for Buffalo to the wing, and they score. Bennington dove over, but just couldn't get there. And the Buffalo Sabres get the overtime power play goal.
I think Ferraro's got to quit living in fantasy land, because this isn't a playoff team. And I can't believe they thought that going into the season looking at this roster.
This one's going to end for the St. Louis Blues. Washington exploded in that second and third period. Takes it to the Blues by a score of 8-1.
Drew Bannister are clearly frustrated.
We're here to discuss the hiring of Jim Montgomery as the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. We're excited to have Jim part of our staff. It's a good day for the Blues.
I think Drew Bannister's lack of success here isn't necessarily because Drew Bannister's a bad coach, because it's a bad roster.
Oilers are in. McDavid dangles down low, far wing, they score. Connor McDavid magic strikes again, and the Edmonton Oilers are going to win in overtime.
I feel like we're talking about this team as if they're on the cusp of a playoff spot. They're not. They are 3 points away from picking today in the top 5. The Blues this year are playing like a rebuilding team.
And I also think last night's game was a reminder they belong in the have-nots category. They've played the Avalanche, dominated them.
The car in. Wrist shot, score! 4-0 Colorado.
Dallas dominated them.
Blues are shut out for the first time in the season.
And the Blues, they don't belong in that tier. You know, they belong in that final tier when you look at it and say, hey, maybe it could have been a team for that last wild card spot. But because you happen to hit this stretch of some of these best teams in the Western Conference, they just smacked you right back down to where you're now looking way up at the Calgary Flame.
I'm not sure if Robert Thomas is going to be the type of player that you can win a cup with as your number 1 center.
Down to 3 seconds left, and the time will tick off. That's the 3rd straight game the Blues have had to pick 4 goals out of their net.
The amount of games where you've got to find a way to get points down the stretch, it's like 20 plus. I say all of that to say this. This team ain't making the playoffs, man. It's over. It's time to face reality that this is just, it's not a good enough team. They dug themselves too big of a hole.
You just go day by day right now, and we play Winnipeg and we play Colorado Saturday, Sunday. Like, the reality is we got to get 4 points. We haven't won 3 in a row. We have to win 3 in a row by the time the trade deadline comes, or you know, you're going to just run out of runways.
I asked Joe Boo to come. Take fear. I offered him cigar and rum. He will come.
Bolduc, a partial break. He shoots, he scores! Zach Bolduc, a breakaway goal. 5 seconds comes off the clock, and that'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. 4-1 win tonight for the Blues over the LA Kings. And the Blues have won 4 games in a row. Buchnevich to Kyrou, to the empty net. Hat trick goal. If you've got a hat, chuck it at your radio. To the line for Suter. He drives, it's loose in front. They score! Pavel Buchnevich back to the lineup and gives the Blues the lead. 4 seconds left. They put it on front to Makar. They shoot. Save Bennington and bring out the Zamboni. 9 games in a row won by the Blues. They snapped the Avs 11-game home winning streak.
Kyrou pass off the skate of Dylan Holloway to break it. A big hit by Jordan Kyrou as he knocks to break it down. Thomas over to Fowler by himself. Back in. He scores! Cam Fowler, the 2-on-1, goes top shelf on Cam Talbot, and the Blues extend their win streak to 10 games.
I don't say this lightly. It is unbelievable. It is difficult to fathom what we have witnessed.
Kyrou skates in, drops it off to Thomas. Thomas takes a shot, he scores! Robert Thomas, the overtime winner, as the Blues flood the ice to tie a franchise record for 11 consecutive wins.
Snuggerud stick checks it loose. Buchnevich score! What a play by Snuggerud. Buchnevich has been a monster in this game. 2 seconds left, that'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni and put 12 wins on it. Fans in St. Louis showed up. Blues brought the season back from the brink. And you can bring out the Zamboni. They beat the Utah Hockey Club 6-1. They earn a trip to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They'll face off against the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. a chance to win the Cup this year.
I am feeling like a Stanley Cup is in our destiny. I am feeling a parade down Market Street, T-Bone.
Yeah!
If that doesn't make you want to run through a wall, I don't know what will. Great job by T-Bone on the intro today alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line if you'd like to send in the praise for T-Bone and that introduction today. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is where the graveyard chat is off and running this morning as well. Alex?
Oh, God, oh, man. T-Bone, you got me amped for that one.
I love a good montage.
I do too. Great.
And a montage where you go from the depths of hell to playoff introduction, man, there's really nothing better. You could feel the turn coming. It felt like the season, man. The ebbs and the flows, the roller coaster ride of emotions that we went through with this team. I remember the day that I came on the air, Alex, and I heard the quote in that introduction where we went through and we're like, man, the teams that are in the spot that the Blues are at, I think they were like 50 games into the season at that point in time. The teams that are here, here's what is necessary to get to the playoffs. You've got to win like 12 out of 15. You've got to get 20 points, or you've got to get points in like 20 of the last 25 games. Like, this team isn't capable of that, because how could you have possibly thought this team was capable of going on that kind of a run? And yet, here we are. They took care of business last night against Utah, left nothing for chance, came out immediately, got into their A game. Just an unbelievable performance by them, and what is a capper of one hell of a season, man. Very low expectations coming into the year, all about the youth movement in a transition year in every possible way, and yet they found a way to get it done. Alex Ferrario, I leave the table open for you. What did you make of it last night as you witnessed what was basically history for this Blues team once again making it to the postseason?
I mean, there's just not words to describe it, because you heard the roller coaster that T-Bone just took you through. Like,
I was very low on that roller coaster.
That's what this season was. It was the ultimate highs of Broberg and Holloway and thinking like, man, what could happen? The ultimate lows of another coach being fired, another team that looked like they were going to be having a top 10 draft pick. Us talking in December of like, yeah, this is a lost season. You just have to start building for the future. And then the moment Jim Montgomery came in, and he even said it last night on postgame, he's like, the moment we played that game against the Rangers, I knew this team could make the playoffs. It was just making sure everybody could be on the same page. And that's what it capped off with last night. It capped off with a team that has been on the same page since February 22nd, that invested in Montgomery's camp, as you like to put it, BK, that invested in the mindset of like, look, if this can become a team, we will be the toughest ones to go up against. And they suffered everything from Parayko being injured, to Thomas being injured, to Holloway being injured, Broberg being injured. And they found a way. And I thought last night was the perfect definition of this season, because when people were thinking, oh, this team's not going to get it done, this team has not been able to get it done, this is a big game, Utah's going to disappoint, what do? They came out and they just put their foot on the throat of the Utah Hockey Club. It's the famous Doug Armstrong quote, jam the knife into the brain and kill the opponent. That's what they did last night. And it wasn't just Utah that they killed. It's every single person that has sat there and said, this team's not good enough. They found a way to do it. Are they going to get beat in the playoffs? I don't know, man, but this is the step you have to have if you're the Blues to start winning the culture once again.
That's the thing. Like, we'll get to the Blues, what the playoffs mean, what lies ahead for them. We'll get to all of that coming up here in about 15 minutes or so, because I do think there's a long discussion to be had there, and we will do so over the next 3 days, 4 days, as we preview what the matchup looks like against the Winnipeg Jets. But today is about, at least this segment, is about looking back on what the season was. Because, dude, I still am, I'm struggling to navigate what we have just witnessed. Like, it's almost hard for me to believe, like, it happened so fast, but also took so long to get here. This team fired its coach. Like, that happened. This team at the trade deadline was considering trading its captain.
Yeah.
Like basically saying, we're done here. Their number one defenseman, the guy that at one point in time, Alex Ferrario was saying prior to the injury, hey, he should get like legit top 5 Norris Trophy consideration.
Still believe it.
That guy missed basically the entirety of this winning streak that got them back into playoff consideration. Robert Thomas, for a month, played some of the worst hockey we've seen from him in years. Philip Broberg had a leg issue that we thought was going to take him out for months. He ended up coming back early. Pavel Buchnevich did not look like himself for like 3 months this season. He was playing center at the beginning of the year, guys. Like,
we all remember that one.
This stuff all happened this season. I think Zach Bolduc had 0 goals when Jim Montgomery was hired.
And then he finished with 19.
Jake Neighbors was like a third liner. I mean, just the stuff. Dude, they tried taking Nathan Walker off the 4th line.
Yep. I mean, everything you can think of with this team.
And we're here.
And can I be honest? Crazy. You know what is also just kind of baffles me is I agree with everything that you just said. I also felt like at times you could kind of see it coming. Maybe not building up to get into the playoffs, but remember a lot of our conversations when we were talking about how it doesn't work, and I had too many clips in there, but I kept saying, like, guys, each individual player that you want to get results from, you're liking what you're seeing. Dylan Holloway's playing really well. Broberg's playing really well. Before Thomas had the weird stretch, he was playing very well. Neighbors was back to playing himself. Even though Bolduc didn't have a goal, we liked his game, and we just kept looking at it going, it's not working, and we don't know why, but we're kind of happy because we're getting individual results. You're getting answers of what you wanted.
It was a successful season, even if they finished with like 85 points.
Exactly, and that should have been us going, you know what? Maybe they can turn this around. Maybe not
Alex
to get into the playoffs.
That's why you didn't hear any clips of that.
Yeah, I know. He was too positive throughout the whole
T-Bone was
thing.
like, I got to find a negative one. I can't find that for some reason. Here's the part that gets me, too. They opened up that Four Nations break, and yes, they had a softer schedule, guys, but listen to what they did. Winnipeg, Colorado, the Washington Capitals, the Kings, the Stars, the Kings, the Wild, the Predators 3 times in 7 days, the Vancouver Canucks, the Montreal Canadiens, the Avalanche again. They played a total of 3 sets of back-to-backs, 6 total games in about 2 months, and they picked up points in every single one of them with the exception of the Dallas Stars. And that was with road and home games all invested there. This isn't a team that went on a 12-game win streak and lost, 7 games from the Four Nations break until the end of the season. This is a team that played 12 games in 21 days, that played 37 games in about 28 days, and they found ways.
The math might be off there.
That was a little off on there. I had it last night.
I mean, that would be impressive.
Regardless, they played a ton of hockey in a short sample size with almost 0 days of practice, and they remained consistent until the final 4 games of the season, where their play dipped a little bit, which is why last night I thought was a perfect ending, because with their play dipping, they got back to the style that they're used to playing, which I think is what invoked so much confidence for Blues fans going into the postseason.
All right, let's hear from Jim Montgomery. He was great at the podium last night. He began with how the win felt for him and how much gratitude he had for this season.
Oh, it feels really good. And I love the way we did it. We got back to who we are for 60 minutes. In the first 8 minutes, I knew we were going to win just by the way we were committed to playing north and playing at a goal line. I thought our forecheck was excellent, and we made them defend.
Alex, let's start with this. Let's look at the game from last night. Because most of what Montgomery talked about was kind of bigger picture. How did we get here? What led to all of this? Let's start with last night's game and the 6-1 win against the Utah Hockey Club. That was the team that has given the Blues fits for 5 years now, 6 years now, going back to really the COVID season.
Yeah.
What happened last night? How did they came out in the first period. It was over.
Yep.
You didn't even have to watch the second or the third. You probably did because it was a celebration of the 2025 season coming to an end and the postseason beginning. But, dude, you knew after that first period, this team is not losing this game. Yeah, they're up 4-0. We've seen that kind of a lead disappear before. That ain't happening last night. No chance of that. The Blues put it all to bed. How did they do it?
So a couple of things happened, and I go to a couple of cuts that I heard from Schenn and Neighbors in pregame. One, Schenn talking about, look, like whatever happened in the past against this team, it doesn't matter for this game. There's one game that stands in front of us to get to the playoffs, and this is a team that is able to forget about the past. Where 2 years ago, this was a team that was like an elephant. They're going to remember every single thing possible. I think elephants have great memories. The second one that stuck out to me, Grant Francis asked Neighbors, like, the struggles with Utah, what is it about them? He said, I don't know what it is, but he said said, I know for a fact we're bigger than them and we should be able to push them around. That's what happened in that game in the first period. They went out there and they pushed them around. Now, it started off like a chess match, and it felt like the Blues were just invoking Utah to start. They were inviting them to kind of get a little nasty. And when they did, it put the Blues on the power play. And I think the Blues had the same mindset of, look, this is a team that's playing the final game of their regular season. This is a team that if we put a couple of goals up on them, they're going to check out mentally. And they went back-to-back with 2 goals in 3 minutes. And then on the power play, they just wiped them away. So at the end of the first period, the Blues understood Utah's not going to be invested in this game. Now, they had to deal a little bit of holding back Utah in the second period because of all of the penalties that took place. But it was a moment that the Blues went into and said, one team is standing in front of us for the postseason, and they did not back down from the moment they dropped that puck. They got back to 4 lines rolling. They got back to the physical brand of hockey, and they finally had their defensive core at full strength that was able to eliminate Utah. That team put 7 goals up on Nashville. And I know Nashville's bad, but they still had Yusei Saros. And the Blues allowed 1 goal, and it was on the power play.
Let's get to bigger picture. What Jim Montgomery had to say last night. We've got a few different cuts that I want to get to here. First, how they were able to fight back after the adversity and really the hole that they had put themselves into.
Great leadership led by our captain who scored the first goal tonight. I thought consistency by the staff and the players with our communication. And then I just thought that we grew so much culturally in our team identity. And those 2 things, when our players started using words like togetherness, the words I used, those were their words I used this morning, selfless, sacrifice, love.
He was then asked about what changed after the 4 Nations break, Alex, because that's the thing that we all pinpoint. Camp Monty took place, and then boom, they came out and they were the best team in the NHL. What changed during that break?
One thing I think we did is we spent a lot of time together, more time than we were before. Even we didn't give maybe as many days off. We didn't go on the ice anymore, but we would come to the rink and we would be together. I think that helped the culture. I think it helped foster better communication by everybody involved, especially peer-to-peer in that room. And then I just think we have 5 guys who have won a cup here. We have a lot of other guys that have come from organizations here that are glue guys. And then you have young guys that have come here that all they know in the NHL is being a Blue. And being a Blue matters. And I think when you combine all that together, there's a lot of guys that take pride in representing this city.
You can go through whatever roster moves took place this season. The only reason we're talking about playoffs, I shouldn't say the only reason, the main reason is because of that guy that you just heard from. Everything about Jim Montgomery screams what the Blues turned into. He's asked the question, what changed after the 4 Nations break? The players were hearing Jim Montgomery talk for 2 months about being a Blue, playing a certain style, being great on home ice where they won 12 in a row, which is a franchise record. They all took Jim Montgomery's words and they put it in place on the ice. And it's just been a relentless group. And he's right. It starts with the leadership of Brayden Schenn. It goes to guys that led the way in terms of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. But the Blues aren't here unless Boston makes the dumbest decision possible in terms of letting go a coach that instills culture in a hockey team.
How'd that go for them? They're pretty good. They turned it around afterwards, right?
They gotta be.
They're really good because they're drafting top 10.
We'll see him at the.
Yeah. They're going to get a generational talent with a coach that's probably not going to be there at the end of this year.
I was just curious. I didn't know specifically where they ended up in the standings. So check notes, 4th worst in the NHL.
Jim Montgomery, every team he has been associated with in the National Hockey League has played in the postseason. His first year in Dallas, playoff team that made it to the second round. The 2 years in Boston, playoff teams. The times he was an assistant coach with the Blues, playoff teams. And now he's back into the playoffs. That's the part for me. It's like, man, when we talked about the importance of going out there and finding the coach that can bring the culture back to the Blues, and it just didn't feel like Bannister was it. You saw it. He even said the moment they played the Rangers, Jim Montgomery knew this was a playoff team.
I want to listen to one more because I want to react to what you just had to say there, Alex. I think it plays into the final quote from Jim Montgomery last night on when he thought the playoffs could be possible for the Blues, when it hit for him.
I thought as soon as I coached the first game against the Rangers, I saw how much depth of talent was here. And I thought if we can get to the right places in our habits and our game management that we would be able to do this. But like I've said all along, it took longer than I expected.
I think we all saw some talent. It was a matter of it coming together. And that's what I wanted to get to with the importance of Jim Montgomery. I think it's always hard to discern how much of this was coaching, how much of this was the players, right? Whether we're talking about the Cardinals with the hitting side of things, and is this the hitting coach? Is this the approach? Is it just players that are stubborn or that players just aren't that good? Or if it's the Blues and it's, hey, is this a coaching issue? Is this a culture issue? Is this you just don't have the right core group of players issue? What is it specifically? I think you saw with Monty, if you have the right coach in place and the right messenger, even if it's the exact same message, you can find a way to unlock something within players that you didn't otherwise see as possible. Like Zach Bolduc wasn't this guy under Drew Bannister, and that's not necessarily a knock against Drew Bannister. It just didn't work. And maybe it would have eventually down the road, but it wasn't working then, and you needed a new voice to get the best of Zach Bolduc. Maybe you had something with Jordan Kyrou where he was going to be this version of himself under Drew Bannister. I think you saw times where that was the case under Banny, but you needed Montgomery to unlock that full line with Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou. They became what they are under Jim Montgomery. So that guy unlocked so much that I didn't see as being possible. And man, I'm not somebody that, generally speaking, is like a coach worshiper. I think sometimes we put too much credit and not enough to the players. This dude did one hell of a job in coaching the team this year.
T-Bone's going to find this audio, but in my pregame folder, T-Bone, Pavel Buchnevich, or it might be in my pregame folder or in the Daily Show folder, Pavel Buchnevich was asked about Jim Montgomery. And they were asking him about it. Yeah, T-Bone, I think it's in the Daily Show folder for today, live radio for everybody. But he was asked about Pavel Buchnevich, or Pavel Buchnevich was asked about Jim Montgomery, and they said, what about this guy changed so much for the Blues? And he talked about a couple of different areas. One, of course, is the confidence that he was able to, and the players were able to find from the coach. But he talked about the structure, he talked about the habits, and he also said, look, he just allows us to go out there. That's fine. He said he allows us to go out there and play with some freedom. And remember the Buchnevich cut, BK, from Pavel Buchnevich before Drew Bannister was fired. And Buch was very critical, and he was like, look, we get into the offensive zone, and we just feel like we don't know what we're doing.
I remember that, yeah. That was the moment that I knew Bannister was gone.
When Pavel Buchnevich, T-Bone's found it. Play this one for us, T-Bone.
System, positivity, always great to be around. Believing in you, how's you good player, let you do stuff in the offensive zone, what are you good on that, and everybody was super pumped. Monty's coming, like half of the team know him from previous work here, and you know how good he's a coach and even better the person.
Isolate the part where he talked about he gives us the opportunity to go out there and play the way we want.
System, positivity, offensive zone trust, fun, familiarity. Those were the 5 things that he mentioned in that cut.
Brought back fun for hockey. And this was the thing that Craig Berube did when he took over. He talked about this is a group that just does not have confidence in their game. And when Berube took over, he allowed them to play that style with adding some structure to it. That's what Jim Montgomery did. The reason Bolduc has 19 goals, the reason Holloway was looked at as a budding star in the National Hockey League, it's because Jim Montgomery didn't come in here and say, you play this way and this is how we do it. He came in and he gave him the structure, but he said, go out there and play hockey. He told Jimmy Snuggerud when he got to the NHL, dude, just go shoot the puck. He told Zach Bolduc, be relentless in the offensive zone. He's letting them play the style that got them to the National Hockey League rather than treating them like robots and saying, this is how you need to play hockey.
But also giving them structure. It's both, right? You need both. You need to have, this is what we lean on, but also there is freedom within the structure. It is not rigid. And that's anything in life, right? Like, we have a specific kind of way that we are supposed to do this show. We have 4 segments every hour. That is our structure. Guess what we're doing today? 3 segment hour, big boy. Why? Because there is freedom within the typical constraints to be able to do this job. Whether you're doing radio, whether you're playing hockey, if you're a salesperson, there's a specific kind of way that you're typically doing your pitches. Guess what? If you're the best salesperson at your job, your company's probably going to give you a little more leeway on how you're pitching your clients. Whatever it is that you do, if your boss shows a little bit of trust in your abilities, it is going to instill more confidence in whatever it is that you do. And I think you saw that play out this year on the ice for the Blues, where it started with the true structure, and then from there, yeah, you can start to color outside of the lines a little bit. Don't get crazy. And I think the Blues over the last few games prior to Winnipeg got a little crazy. They maybe drew outside of the lines a little too often, and they got away from some of that structure. All right, let's hone it in. Let's reel it back in, get back to who we are as a team. Be who you are, but do it within our system to a degree. And when you have something like that, it's really beautiful to watch, man. It kind of brings a tear to your eye.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're all going to start crying right now. It's like a beautiful mind out there. But this is why it was so important to get to the playoffs. And at the beginning of the season, I told you guys, like, look, I think it's a failure if you don't make the playoffs. The front office obviously believed that this was a playoff team, but you can't enter a competitive window until you taste the postseason. And now, not only is Thomas back on this moment, which, by the way, the last time Thomas played in the playoffs, guys, he wasn't the go-to player.
No.
Ryan O'Reilly was.
Jordan I remember in that was the moment where it felt like it was a changing of the guard, where it's like, okay, I think Robert Thomas is actually the better
started to see him take bigger face-offs against the Colorado Avalanche. Kyrou scored a ton of goals, but he wasn't the go-to guy. Vladimir Tarasenko was. Colton Parayko was kind of the alpha dog, but it was fresh off of Pietrangelo leaving. Now all of these guys are the dudes. All of these guys are now in front of the team, and now Neighbors and Bolduc and Snuggerud and Holloway, even though I know he's been injured, all of these guys just experience what it takes to make the playoffs. Now you're going to experience what it's like to be in the playoffs, and you take that into next season. It's how you open up a competitive window.
I want to continue talking about that. What did this run mean for the Blues young players? We'll get into that coming up on the other side. If you guys want to get your thoughts in, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Also today, we want to hear from you Blues fans. What is it like for you to have gone through this entire roller coaster of a season with them starting really from the bottom and now arriving into the playoffs here as we have officially reached the end of the 2025 regular season? Give us your thoughts on this Blues season overall, who you give the credit to, what it was like for you to witness all of this, the ups and the downs. Scott Lee Heating mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We will play those throughout the day today. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. That is going to be where you can get some of those graveyard chats in as well. Questions and answers coming up at 11:45. But next, what did this run mean for the Blues young players? What can this instill in them, not just for the here and now, but also for the future? We'll talk about that next year on PK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The season is over. The Blues are in the playoffs. If you want to get your thoughts in on what this season was like to watch as a fan, the ups and the downs, the roller coaster of emotions, you can get those in on the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature over on the 101 ESPN app. Alex, for some of the young guys, it was quite the year. Zach Bolduc had a weird start to the season. He was in and out of the lineup at times. They had a very clear plan for him, though. So I guess not even necessarily weird, just a strategically placed plan for him to become the player that he ultimately is. What was this like for the young guys? What does this mean for them? That was a question that was asked of Jim Montgomery in the post-game session last night. I want to take a listen to this because I do think it's something worth discussing.
Well, what they've learned is what it takes to win in this league, and it's such a great experience to understand the grind and the mental grind, more than the physical grind, that it takes to win battles, to win every foot of ice in this league that's the greatest league in the world, in big moments, and being able to come through in big moments. It only gives them This is going to give us years of good vibes, because the experience and learning how to win, it's not easy to find that in the league.
Alex, I think a lot of the discussion today for those young players will be focused on Neighbors, Bolduc, Broberg, Holloway, like a lot of the young guys that are new to the team, right, that did not go on the run with them, whether it be 2022 or certainly in 2019. I think it even expands beyond that, because it's not just young guys that are new to the team they're having their first taste of playoff hockey. It's also, as you mentioned in the first segment, Robert Thomas has never been this player on a playoff team.
Yeah.
He's never been asked to be the number one center with no doubt in your mind, having to carry that kind of a load while carrying a team to the playoffs. He just did that. Jordan Kyrou has never been the go-to guy. No doubt about it. That dude is the number one goal scorer on your team for a playoff team. We've never seen this version of, honestly, Colton Parayko.
Yeah.
Going into the playoffs.
And I know he was the guy when they were in the playoffs, because what was that? That was 21-22 season, and Petro wasn't on that roster. But think of some of the other defensemen that were there. Like Justin Falk was the acquisition that they brought in, who was kind of a big deal. Torrey Krug was as well. Like, he was a part of a trio. Now he's the alpha in this playoff series.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Right? There's no doubt about it. So when you look at what they have been able to build here, and who knows what's in the future, I agree with Montgomery. They learned what it takes. Now, it's up to them to sustain that level, and that is easier said than done, but they now know this is the style of play that works for us. We have to commit to it, and if they want to, man, they could have a hell of a next 3 to 5 year run in them. This could be more than just a one-off in 2025.
Yeah, this could open up a 10-year window for the Blues. I always go back to the conversation we had, BK, with David Backes a while ago. And we talked about, the impact for young players of feeling the playoffs. And he referenced 2008, 2009. At the time, Backes was 24 years old, had played 2 years for the Blues that had missed the playoffs. And he said, we went on a run in the second half of that season, because if people remember, that was a season. The first half was bad. The second half, injuries piled up, and Chris Mason went on that historic run, got him to the playoffs. And he said, we got beat in 4 games. I believe it was either Vancouver or San Jose. And he said, as a group of guys that was TJ Oshie and David Perron and Patrick Berglund, as a group, we looked around and we said, that was a gauntlet to get to the playoffs. We now need to understand how to play to be a playoff team. Now, they missed the playoffs the next 2 years. The next year, they had 90 points and were 4th place. The following year, 87 points. But then they brought in Ken Hitchcock, and you had a 26-year-old David Backes, a 24-year-old TJ Oshie, a young Perron, a young Berglund that had experience. Hitch brought the system in place. They knew what it took to get there. They needed guidance to a system. Now Jim Montgomery has just brought that, and now Snuggerud, Bolduc, Holloway, Neighbors, Broberg, even Dalibor Dvorsky, who only played a couple of games, but has been around this team for the last 2 weeks. Now they understand this is what it takes to get to the postseason. Whatever happens in the playoffs, we now understand that in October, November, December, you've got to play just like you played in March and April, so that when you're in the playoffs, you're prepared for a long run. And that's how you open a window of 10 years in the playoffs.
How about Snuggerud?
Dude, fit like a glove.
So I said yesterday, I'll own this. I disagreed with the decision to put him on that second line. I would have gone with Neighbors on that second line. I would have gone Bolduc on the top line and Snuggerud on the third line with Sonny and Joseph, because I had concerns of, does he fit? Does he fit with what they're trying to accomplish on that second line? Is he the style of player that they need? I said at the time, and I certainly will claim this now, I trust Monty, though. He's doing this for a reason, and his decisions more often than not have worked out this season. He clearly has something about, it's similar to Craig Berube in that 2019 Cup run, where he would tinker with the lineup, and everything that he did seemed to work. He had the Midas touch, right? It worked last night. You saw the idea of conceptually why you would go with Neighbors on that top line. They work together. Like, Neighbors just works with those guys, and hopefully it continues to be that way. Snuggerud, though, was the bigger one to me that stood out, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this could be a line that works long-term. I don't know if it will for sure, but it could. He looked great. Yeah. He looked awesome. And we talk about the young guys, what this run means for them. If we specify what it means for Snuggerud, dude, imagine what it must be like. His world has been rocked. He got pushed out of the Frozen Four earlier than anybody expected. Just a brutal game to lose. Immediately transitions to pro hockey. Plays in that first game, which had to be a whirlwind for him. He mentioned, like, he didn't know where the video room was. Literally got lost going to the video room during his first day at Enterprise. He had never been to Enterprise before. So you get that out of the way, and then you get some of the first game jitters out of the way. And then last night, you get your first goal after having played pretty well in the previous couple of games. Just really impressive by him to fit in the way that he has. That is not an easy thing to do when you've got a team that is in this kind of a situation with a lot of veteran core group of players that are here. It could have been easy for them to be like, nah, man, bleep you. We've got a good thing going right now. We're in the middle of the winning streak. And instead, he fit in and was a key contributor last night in the game that put them over the top.
It was the second best line Corsi rating for the team. The best was Thomas, Neighbors, and Buchnevich. The second best was Jimmy Snuggerud with Schenn and Kyrou. And we'll talk to Kerbs about this at 1:30 today, but he was telling us on pregame, he had a great conversation with Jake Neighbors about how he has to play differently with the lines, whether it's Schenn and Kyrou and Thomas and Neighbors. And it sure seems like Neighbors works better with that line of Thomas and Buch because they're a below the goal line possession team, where Kyrou likes to go out high with his offense. He likes to go up and start cycling that way. Guys, Jimmy Snuggerud is... He's a chameleon. He has the ability to adapt to whatever line he needs to play on, because when he was with Thomas and Buchnevich, he could play that cycle game below the goal line. But now when he's playing with Schenn and Kyrou, I don't know about you guys, but off of the rush, Jimmy Snuggerud's got speed and that shot, which is so dangerous.
That's where he does replace some of what Holloway brought to the table. You're not going to find any other player on this roster that can fit into that spot and bring everything that Holloway brought. Well, you can have specific aspects of his game, and you got to decide what is the most important piece of what he brought to that line that will open up them to have offense down the road. And I think for Snuggerud, it is that rush offense and the shot.
And the part of it, too, is the defensive side of it. Because that goal, or the breakaway that Schenn scored the goal on where Snuggerud missed and then he got the rebound, go back and watch that play. He's pressuring Nick Schmaltz all the way to the board to force Schmaltz to shoot the puck, which bounces off of Parayko. Parayko gets it to Buch, and Buch sends Snuggerud off to the races.
And it's the transition. It's defense into offense. You hear about that a lot in basketball. This was that, but on the hockey side of things.
And that's where it's like, look, if you've got to replicate Holloway, to me, Snuggerud might be the best option for you because of that two-way style. And that's where, and we'll get into this a little bit later, you got back to the style that has made you a playoff team. You rolled four lines last night. Sundqvist, Joseph, and Bolduc, they weren't the greatest, but they generated a couple of scoring opportunities. Thomas and Neighbors and Buchnevich were back to it. You had the WTF line. You rolled four lines last night. And so the fact that Snuggerud, and the quote from Bill Guerin is what really got me, BK, when he was talking about the Zeev Buyam from Denver who just signed. He said, look, he's going to play. These kids from college, they're different, man. They're ready for this stuff. That's why Jimmy Snuggerud is in the lineup and playing every single day, and why Dalibor Dvorsky's not.
We're going to get to questions and answers on the other side. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. YouTube chat is at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. We're going to give Tyler the last word here, though, via the mic drop feature.
Hey, guys. First of all, that segment T-Bone put together to open the show, that was just freaking electric.
That's why he played this
Makes
one.
you want to run through a wall. It just it gets the blood flowing.
Oh, yeah.
Second,
End it there.
we got to give all the credit to Army here for this season. I mean, in the summer, we thought weren't going to be a playoff team. It was going to be another year of just growing the young guys, and that was kind of it. Then the offer sheets come in. Expectations changed a little bit, but still, you didn't know what you were going to get out of Holloway and Broberg. Then the coaching change. We had the injuries, the Thomas and Broberg. You get Cam Fowler in here. It just, all these moves that Army makes, it all goes back to him. I just don't think Army gets enough credit. This really all goes back to him.
Man, and it goes even beyond the offer sheets. Like, Radek Faksa was acquired for essentially nothing, and that dude has anchored your fourth line all season. Ryan Suter, when we had him on, multiple people were like, bad dude, not going to help your locker room. Dude played 82 games this year and is 40 years old and has been an anchor for some of these guys on the back end.
And again, we talked to him one time. We're like, I don't know, seems like a good guy to me.
He's up for like the nicest guy award right now in the NHL. Like, what are we doing? Matthew Joseph, I know I had some negative things to say about him, but look, the guy has adapted well for you as a in and out type of player.
Also, bring some levity in the locker room, which, as you know, they desperately needed.
Totally. Dude was light. He's always had a good time, and he jokes around nonstop. But the offer sheets, the Jim Montgomery one, Kerb said this last night talking with Jim Montgomery. You know, Monty told Kerbs, if it was any other team that called, and other teams called when he was let go from Boston, he said, I'm not making that decision as fast as I did. He said, the reason I made that decision in 48 hours to be a Blues head coach was because I knew Doug Armstrong, I knew the culture of St. Louis, I knew that roster. So the fact that that man was available and Doug Armstrong pounced on it, and as he said, when a T-bone steak falls in front of you, I'm going to eat. And that's what Jim Montgomery was. He's right. Tyler's absolutely correct. This season doesn't happen without Doug Armstrong. I think he gets tons of credit, though, because people understand Doug Armstrong 100%. Is one of the best in the league.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Questions and answers coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the St. Louis Blues took down the Utah Hockey Club and clinched their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs as they will take on the Winnipeg Jets in number one. And we'll have all the coverage for you here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Cardinals fell to the Astros yesterday 2-0. The rubber match of the series is today, and they're getting ready to start up with first pitch here just shortly. Steven Matz on the mound for St. Louis as they take on the Houston Astros. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Three 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now. If you guys want to get your mic drops in, you can do that as well. The Scott Lee Heating mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. What was it like for you to go on the roller coaster ride with this Blues team this year? We'll get to some of those throughout the day today. Let's start with this, Alex, from the 314. If you had to place a bet today on the team that you think will win the Stanley Cup, who would you go with? I've got the odds for you. Just pull these up real quick if you want.
It's the Blues.
The Vegas Golden Knights are currently the favorites at 7-1.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Okay. Don't believe that.
After that, Dallas, Florida, and Colorado are all 8-1. Carolina, Toronto, Winnipeg, Tampa, and Washington are all 10-1. Edmonton 12-1, and then LA at 20, Ottawa at 30. The Devils in Minnesota Wild at 40. Your Blues at 50-1. And Montreal is 80-1 to win the Cup this year. If you had to pick a team, best odds, who would you go with, Alex?
I would probably go Tampa.
10-1.
Dallas. And I hate saying this, but I think I might put Colorado in there as well.
Sure.
And the only reason why is because of Landeskog. And getting him back is going to be a massive boost. Like, I think one of the teams that come out of that Dallas-Colorado matchup has a legit shot at winning the Stanley Cup. But my team right now, it's Tampa. Dude, Tampa has been a juggernaut since the Four Nations break, right there with the Blues. Kucherov and Point have been dominant. Vasilevsky looks good. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. If they can beat Florida, good luck getting through them in the Eastern Conference. So those would be the 3 that I would put up there on top of the Blues, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think Dallas, Colorado winner of that's going to be the one that comes out of the Western Conference, which is wild that is a first-round matchup, but here we are. I would say
2022.
1 through 8 wouldn't have been, by the way. They would have been a second-round matchup.
Batman, let's fix this, dude.
Amen.
Tampa, Florida, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
That should not be a first round.
That's insane.
I would take Dallas. That would be the one that I would put my money on right now. I just think they're so well-rounded.
Yeah, they've been playing poorly, though. I mean, they're 4-4-2 in their last 10, and they are in a 3-game losing streak going into the playoffs.
Do we have an update on Florida's injury issues?
Yeah, they're going to have – they had a couple of guys back. Matthew Tkachuk's expected to be back for round 1. The only guys the only teams that are really impacted by injuries going into the postseason, Edmonton, Dallas, that I don't believe is going to have Heiskanen for the first round. They are going to get Sagan back. Winnipeg is without Nikolai Ehlers, which we'll get deeper into the weeds about Winnipeg and the Blues, but that's
a big one.
That's a big one because that's very similar to what Dylan Holloway is. And I think that's it in terms of massive injuries for their team because Colorado's getting their guys back. Vegas is going to have everyone back. So Edmonton and Dallas and Winnipeg are the ones that have massive injuries going into it.
Given the odds, I would be targeting that Tampa line at 10-1.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be one of Vegas, Dallas, Florida, Colorado, Tampa. So Tampa's the only one that has longer odds than 8-1 out of that group that I just mentioned. I'd go with Tampa.
I am interested. What were the odds on Toronto?
Toronto also 10-1.
Toronto's a team that in normal scenarios, I'd be like, yeah, no way they're going to lose in the first round. Berube's got that team playing well, and you know he's going to have them locked in on the postseason. So they'll be a sneaky team, but I'm actually a little concerned for Toronto taking on Ottawa in the first round.
All right, a couple of questions left for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. We'll do these quick hitter style. From the 636, who will end up having the best career out of the following 3 players? Bolduc, Dvorsky, or Snuggerud?
I'm going to say Snuggerud.
I would as well.
I would say Dvorsky's just tough because we haven't seen it yet. And I do believe, despite what we've seen in a couple of games, Dvorsky is going to be lethal as a centerman. As I could handicap it now, I'd say Snuggerud 1, Bolduc 2, Dvorsky 3. But I think after we see Dvorsky next year, he might inch up to number 2.
I'd agree with that.
Same. Sweep it. From the 3-1-4, Steven Matt's strikeout line set at 2.5. Do you guys think that that's free money? And nothing's free money, but I would take the over.
I would take the over, too. It's only 2.5.
I'm guessing that's because of pitches. They said yesterday he's expected to throw like 65 pitches today, and the Astros are not a team that strikes out a lot, but I would still take the over.
Yeah, I think he's got good swing and miss stuff, so yeah, I would take over 2.5.
Probably. Fedde got 5 yesterday, and he's on a strikeout guy, so yeah, I think Steven Matt's good.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The Scott Lee Heating mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We do want to hear from you throughout the show today. We'll play some of your mic drops as they come in on what it was like for you as a fan to go through this season. Just an unbelievable ride that this team was able to take us on. But coming up next, Brayden Schenn's decision at the deadline. Let's not overlook that. It might have changed the course of the Blues' history. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Parayko cleared ahead. Snuggerud in the clear. Snuggerud shooting save. Rebound, they score! Brayden Schenn puts the Blues on top, 1-0.
That's what it sounded like right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN last night. The captain scoring in what was really a game that reminded us, once again, of his importance to this team with Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. He was excellent. He's been pretty damn good all season long for the Blues. He's also been the leader that they needed to drag them from the abyss midway through the year. Alex, yesterday after the game, I thought Kerbs and Joey did an unbelievable job in talking to Brayden Schenn on the broadcast and the post-game availability about what that meant to them, Jimmy Snuggerud. Like, they went into a wide variety of subject matters with Brayden Schenn, but their last question really caught my ear. And I think it was Kerbs that asked the question where he said, hey, listen, at the deadline, you had a decision to make. And you decided to stick with it. You decided to see this thing through. What does it mean to you now to see where the team is going after that kind of a decision? I thought Brayden Schenn had some awesome comments here. Take a listen.
Obviously trade deadline, no secret my name was out there, and it could have went either way, to be honest, and I'm glad. I told my teammates and I told everyone around me the job's not finished, and I feel like we can get this team to the playoffs. So we did. Job's not done yet. It's going to be quite the experience. One, playing Winnipeg again, and two, I've never played my brother in the playoffs. So looking forward to the opportunity. It's going to be obviously a little bit different, but family's going to be glued to whether the TV, and I'm sure they'll be there at games 1, 2, 3, and 4. So looking forward to the opportunity. And you know what? It's we have too many good players in that room to miss the playoffs this year, and we felt we had a good team. It was when I felt like we traded for Fowler, obviously got Monty. I felt it was on the players in the room to go and get the job done. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you'd like, but game 82, and you just got to get in. You just got to get into the dance. That's always a saying, and we are, and anything can happen.
Alex, he didn't have to stay. We'll never know truly what exactly went down at the deadline. The two parties involved, whether it be Army or Brayden Schenn, there's no incentive for them to tell that story, right? That is their story to keep among themselves if they want to. But Schenn's been open and honest about it. The Blues have been open and honest about it. The national reports were out there. It feels like it was at least on the table for him to go to Toronto if he wanted to. It feels like it was on the table for him to maybe even go somewhere else if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. He chose to stay. And, man, that stuff to me is so meaningful because we talked to Doug Armstrong, what was it, 3 weeks ago, a month ago now? And he talked about how the Blues basically start 11th on most players' lists because of the state income tax that they have that some of these teams do not.
And then the original 6 teams.
The original 6 teams. So when you have a player that decides, you know what, no, I'm good. I'm comfortable here. I want to be a part of what we're doing. And this is right after Colton Parayko had just got hurt. It would have been more than understandable if he said, you know what, we're not going to go on a run. Parayko just got hurt. We're already in such a hole. I'm going to go play for a contender. Mm-hmm. You don't know how many more of these years you have in your prime if you're Brayden Schenn, and you want to go compete for a cup. You know Craig Berube. Some of the guys on that team. Toronto. You could go play for the Leafs.
With Berube.
So many kids grow up dreaming about, right? And he decided to stay as the captain of this team to see it through. Man, that stuff is so meaningful. Mm-hmm. And for him to get the payoff at the end, you can't help but be unbelievably happy and satisfied with him getting this opportunity once again.
Yeah, it's what makes this team go. It's the heartbeat of the team. And I know that sounds really cheesy like a rom-com, but that's what Brayden Schenn is. And really that's what a lot of the captains have been for the Blues. It's why you didn't want to see Alex Pietrangelo get traded away. It's why it was such a dagger for Blues fans when David Backes left, because those guys just always seemed to be the heartbeat of a roster. Joey was talking with Jim Montgomery for those couple of games that Kerbs was out for with his back injury. And Joey asked Jim Montgomery about Brayden Schenn. And he said, I was around Patrice Bergeron for 3 years, and Schenn reminds me a lot of what Patrice Bergeron brought to the table, meaning the heartbeat of the team, always willing to pull guys into the race. But also, it's away from the rink. It's what he does for the younger guys. Jimmy Snuggerud is living with him right now. Jake Neighbors was living with Brayden Schenn. That's the part that people don't want to talk a lot about because it's the on-ice production. It's, is he giving you even strength points? Is he scoring goals? Is he picking up points? It's important, but you don't develop a roster unless you've got guys like this. And Schenn has even talked about this with Joe and Kerbs on broadcast, saying like, look, my job is to make sure that these guys understand the style of hockey that needs to be played for the Blues to win. I think he talked about it last night, saying that, look, these guys, they understood how to play in the NHL, but they got to understand what it takes to get to the next level. That's the captain that you keep around. Is he the best centerman on the team? No. Is he the second best centerman on the team? I don't, maybe not. But he's the guy that makes sure everybody is locked in when the games matter, and he gives you an advantage that most other centermen or captains do for their team. They don't.
I think it sometimes gets understated, the importance of what you were just talking about with the young guys living with him. Dude, think about that. Shenn's got kids.
He's got 2 of them.
He's got a life of his own. He's got a wife and kids. He doesn't need to be worrying about this 21-year-old snot-nosed kid that just came from college.
He said last night, he goes, boy, this kid can eat too. He's like, I think we had to load up on steaks because he's dominated
I
them.
just picture him walking in the house of did you bring home another kid? Like, come on. like the classic, did you bring home a dog?
Exactly. Like, think about that for a second. That is just so old school. Like the way that Schenn approaches some of this stuff is very much just like it's Alex Steen, it's Paul Stastny. It is, when you think about, the Cardinals have this as well on their starting pitching side of things, where it was like passed down. It was passed down from Kyle to Carpenter to Waino, and then there's like a through line of the #1 starter on the Cardinals year over year, right? And they all had like certain things that they brought to the table, and they went about it differently, but there was a through line for all of them. And for the Blues, I think there's some of that as well. When you look at some of the leaders, even if it's not the captain of the team, right? Steen was not the captain of the Blues, but he was a guy that did some of this stuff. You don't necessarily see it. It's away from the cameras. It's, I'm going to take guys out for a team dinner on the road, right? I'm going to take a guy off to the side. Yeah, the captain just ripped him a new one. I'm now going to take him off to the side and explain, like, here's why that happened, and I'm here for you, right? Like, I'm going to be the one that ends up putting my arm around you. Or it could be the opposite. The captain has that version, and Steen will rip him a new one, right? That is the kind of leadership that Brayden Schenn represents for this team. And no, it's not the end-all, be-all. And we always talk on the show about chemistry. And is it because of winning? Does winning develop the chemistry, or does chemistry come first and then the winning comes as a byproduct of that? Regardless of where you feel about it, the thing that is always necessary is leadership.
Yeah.
And Brayden Schenn has been a really good captain, a really good leader inside of that room. And now they have the coach in place to help him along. They have the players in place. And frankly, they experience some of that winning, which reinforces some of those positive mindsets.
Yeah, and look, you don't get to this point without having the proper leadership because you don't develop the players. Guys, like Jordan Kyrou is not this player without the proper leadership, whether that is the coaching staff or the captain, whoever you want to give it credit to. I know for a fact that Brayden Schenn has pulled Kyrou aside a lot throughout his time in St. Louis, and you don't get this version of Jordan Kyrou. You know, we all knew Jake Neighbors was going to be a good player, but look at who Jake Neighbors is watching on a daily basis, the way Brayden Schenn plays. And now you're talking about a Jimmy Snuggerud being around that, a Zach Bolduc being around that, a Dylan Holloway being around that. It's why the Blues have had such a long history of success, because every captain is passing down that same mindset. And I know every team goes through this, but this is why I think when you find guys that are captains that aren't the best player in the National Hockey League, Adam Lowry is another good example of this with Winnipeg. Guys that play a certain style, you drag everybody into the fight. And when that's your captain, everybody is going to live up to the bell and answer the bell of what it is. Schenn's played 82 games this season. Like, your captain, who plays that style, has played 82 games this season. Jake Neighbors, 82 games this season for the style of hockey he plays.
I also think that's part of it is, like, he's been healthy. And sometimes, like, you need that guy to be producing in order for the message to resonate with everybody around him. And Schenn, just over the last couple of years, hasn't been the best version of himself. Yeah. It's no shot against him. It's a lot of it is due to the injuries that he's been dealing with. I did want to react to one other thing that we heard last night on the broadcast after the game, because the guys were able to talk to Steve Ott post-game, as they do after the home games, and he was asked about what this means, them making the playoffs, what it means for the Blues in the bigger picture. I loved his answer here.
For us, I think in a whole, it's something where our expectations are back. And the expectations every year is always make the playoffs. You know, you go through a little bit of a retool on the fly. Our management's done a hell of a job of giving us some great players and an influx of young guys that are coming up and, you know, being difference makers. And when you do that, the future looks bright for the Blues, and it's very exciting for all of us.
I love that. Love that quote. The expectations are back. That should be the mindset for the Blues now, right? Like this year, the last couple of years, really, it's been about, okay, we're in this transition. We're in this retool. We don't know what the reword is, but it's something, right? And now that's gone, man.
Yep.
That is something that they just did with this season and what they accomplished here. You go into next season with the expectation of being a playoff team again.
Yeah.
And you go into next season with the expectation of that is really the start of whatever this window is going to be for the Blues, with Kyrou and Thomas as two of the big guys, with Holloway continuing to develop, with Bolduc continuing to develop, Snuggerud, all of these guys, Dvorsky playing a more prominent role for them. That is what this year allows, is now as a Blues fan, not only can you dream, you can also expect a little something more.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have three guys that aren't under contract for next year. Foxes, Suter, and Joel Hofer. My expectation is two of those three at least are going to be re-signed, maybe all three of them. You've got the same roster next year. And you know what you do with that? You either run it back and say, hey, now you guys get a full 82 game with Jim Montgomery in training camp, no questions. You go out there and you maybe run the table for an entire season. Or you can tinker with it.
82-0, you're saying?
Yeah, 82-0.
That'd be sick.
Why not? And then the 8 preseason games, 90-0.
Going to go out on a limb and say I think that would probably be a record.
No, it wouldn't. Probably
We're not even losing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not a game.
We're not going to lose again, from what I'm understanding.
That's
but
awesome.
You could put the entire
Sounds
roster
fun.
back, or you know what you do? You look at it and you say, hey, we can tinker with this a little bit. We were awesome. Let's see if we make ourselves better next season. And that's typically when teams get into this window, they're like, okay, how are we going to keep all of these players, right? You've got a couple of guys that are hitting their big contract. You're hitting a couple of guys that are on the back end of it. Guys, the core is the oldest is Schenn, and he's 33 years old. Like you're probably talking about for a guy that plays that style, 2 more years of around this. But Parayko is 31 years old. Buchnevich is about to be 30. Thomas is 25 years old. Like the problem with what the Blues, not a problem, what they have going for them is their core is locked up and they're not too concerned about it.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you as well at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. And today is the day that we want to hear from you. The Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. What was it like for you to go through this season with the St. Louis Blues? The ups, the downs, the emotional roller coaster ride that it presented for all of us. We'll hear from you throughout the day today here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, more likely to happen. You give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. All right, Alex, let's start out with this. More likely to be the Cardinals' number 3 hitter by the end of the season. Nolan Gorman or Ivan Herrera? Or, excuse me.
Brendan Donovan.
I choose Donovan.
Or Ivan Herrera.
Nolan Gorman. I'm going to say Brendan Donovan because I think Ollie likes his left-right left matchup. Lars Nootbaar has looked good in that leadoff spot. I think Ivan Herrera has been a perfect number 2 for you when he returns from his injury. And then that can allow you to move Contreras down a little bit to where maybe there's less pressure so he can perform. So I'm going to say Brendan Donovan more likely in the 3 because I think Herrera will be in the 2.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. I think it is more likely Donovan stays in the 3. I mean, I mentioned it yesterday. The way he's playing, the way he looks, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets MVP votes. Not to be top 5, but he could be like top 20, gets a couple of votes. I think they're going to end up doing when Herrera comes back what Alex was saying. Either Herrera hits in the 2 spot or Contreras remains in the 2 spot, and then they put the other one at the 4 and they bump Arenado to the 5.
I think it'll be the 5 spot. I don't think Arenado's going anywhere.
I mean, at some point
isn't
you
that
can't
2
deny
righties?
it.
I mean, Arenado's been great, though.
I know, but like there's more power in the bat of a Herrera and a Contreras than I believe Arenado. And maybe he'll prove me wrong. I mean, he had 2 extra base hits 2 nights ago.
Yep.
But I want a little bit more thump in that cleanup spot.
I agree with you guys. I do think it's going to be Donovan that ends up in that 3 hole. I talked a little bit about this with Ollie yesterday, going through his lineup and what he thinks is kind of the ideal configuration of it. He loves what he's seeing from Brendan Donovan in that 3 hole, and he thinks he believes he could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably not 4, but 5 or 6. He basically fits into any of those slots in your order, depending on what you need. And he thinks it right now, given what the team has around him, Donnie fits best in that 3 hole. So I think he will continue to be there. I think Ivan Herrera eventually settles in as your 5-hole hitter this year. Don't know that people are going to love that, but I think that's probably where he eventually settles in. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, more likely to happen. Jimmy Snuggerud has a big first round in the playoffs or Zach Bolduc?
To me, Zach Bolduc would be the guy that I would go with on this, mostly because of the power play. Power play becomes like a huge thing once we get into the postseason. Those are always at a premium, and Zach Bolduc, to me, is a huge threat on that. So
I am going to say some wild things about this power play next season. I don't know if you guys saw it all last night, but, man, the quick decisions by that first power play unit. I mean, the Bolduc goal, it was 3 passes and onto the stick of Bolduc and in the back of the net.
That's impressive.
They're going to be very lethal once Dalibor Dvorsky gets in consistently as well. So I'm actually going to say it's more likely that Jimmy Snuggerud gets in. Because I think if Snuggerud's playing with Schenn and Kyrou, they're going to get some 5-on-5 opportunities, and they might get some mismatches at some point.
Yeah, I would say I would go Bolduc just because of him on that power play. He's found his rhythm of, hey, instead of being on the outside, I'm just going to kind of move my way into that slot area, and Thomas is going to find me, and I'm going to be able to get my goals there. So I would say he has the bigger postseason than Snuggerud, but, I mean, that's not taking anything away from Snuggerud because he's looked freaking awesome. I mean, he was great last night.
T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, more likely to happen. The St. Louis Blues are able to get to the Stanley Cup final, or they end up getting swept by the Winnipeg Jets.
I'll say it's more likely they get to the Stanley Cup final. I don't think this team's getting swept.
I'll say the latter. I just don't think they're getting into the Stanley Cup final. I promise you, St. Louis, this is not me hating on your team at all, but getting to the Stanley Cup final is really hard. Yeah. And without Dylan Holloway, it's just hard to see the path. So I think it's more likely that they get swept. I do not think that will happen. I think they will win a game or 2 in this series, but yeah, you'd have to win 12 to get to the Stanley Cup final. I think it's more likely they win 0 than 12.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's just because they don't have Holloway. They had Holloway, I probably would have been all in on the Stanley Cup win in 12 games. Again, I don't think they're getting swept, but I can see where they get back to playing how they did the previous, 3 or 4 games before they blew out Utah. So I would say more likely they get swept.
All I'm saying is, T-Bone, do yourself a favor so that you don't have to sift through all of the audio for this next montage run in the Stanley Cup final. Mark it down that at 12:30, both of you guys thought that this team was losing in the first round.
I'm such a procrastinator. I'm not going to do that until 4 a.m. the morning that it's due.
But you know what? It's going to turn out great.
From the 314, guys, more likely to be on the top line next year for the Blues. Neighbors, Holloway, or Snuggerud?
Snuggerud. I think Holloway will not be there. Holloway and Kyrou are a pair moving forward, and frankly, I think that line is going to stay together. It really comes down to Snuggerud and Neighbors, and again, Kerb's had a great breakdown and a great conversation. Neighbors identifies playing with that line his style more. But I know for a fact that line loves having a lethal shot, a sniper. When they were at their best, Vladimir Tarasenko was up there. Snuggerud's not there yet. You're building some more confidence. I'll say it's more likely Snuggerud.
I would say Snuggerud as well, because we've seen him pair up well with Robert Thomas and Booch, and I think it kind of goes under the radar how good defensively he is so already, which is maybe the most shocking part for me. And I agree. I don't think you break up Holloway and Cairo, and then I think Neighbors settles in as the third line right now on this team. So
which would work with
Dvorsky and Bolduc. Yeah. Because you've got the shot of Bolduc on that line as well. That's the other thing. You mentioned the shot for Snuggie, what he brings to the Thomas Buchnevich line. Neighbors can provide that physicality that is necessary to clear the front of the net area and to be a screener with Dvorsky and Bolduc. So you've got basically a kid line there with those three different players.
You coming up with nicknames? That's my job.
Yeah, I know. It's already been taken. You can't use that. That's the Rangers thing, right? Weren't they the ones that
it was
used
the Rangers thing. The Blues had the kid line, too, when it was Oshie, Berglund, and Perron. And you don't want to come up with names and get sued on lines.
It's already been used too much. I don't know. We'll
not good enough, I guess.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. Wilson Contreras wins a Gold Glove at first base, or Jordan Walker hits 20-plus home runs this season. Ooh. Contreras has been great at first so far this year, especially in the series. Multiple times he's taken away potential extra bases from Jordan Alvarez. And yesterday he stared him down, too. I don't think Alvarez likes it.
I love it.
It's fun.
I love when Contreras does that. I'm still going to go with Jordan Walker hits 20 bombs. The landscape at first base is not going to be easy to win a Gold Glove.
That's also a position where it's very much about reputation. Yeah. And Contreras
like the Selke Trophy
did not have a good reputation defensively at catcher. I think you're going to need probably 3 years like this before you really see him. Ooh, Jordan Walker just took a ball off the foot. Ugh.
Was it off the foot?
Yeah, well, it was a pop up into foul territory. He was running after it, and I think it dropped right on his foot.
Good. Those don't hurt.
I just don't know that Contreras has the reputation right now that will carry him to an award like that. And I do think Walker has a chance to hit 20 bombs this year.
Yeah, I'd go Walker as well. I think he's got a shot. I don't know if he'll get there, but I agree with the Contreras one. Now, it would be a little easier because some of the best Gold Glove first basemen are now in the American League. Like Goldie's now with the Yankees, Christian Walker's with the Astros, who they're playing today. Just thinking off the top of my head, the best defensive first basemen are Olsen and Freeman, and I don't know if there's another one that I can think of. But yeah, I'd go Walker 20 bombs.
Can I throw one out there again?
Before you do, Ryan Crawford on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is where you can go if you want to get involved in the chat, said the Youngry line.
Oh, that's a good one,
it's
Ryan.
A St. Louis specific statement. It was supposed to be for the Cardinals. We adopt it for the Blues. I kind of like that one.
Way to go, Ryan. I'm going to steal that and claim that as mine, Ryan. So good for you to help me out there. More likely to happen, Jimmy Snuggerud or T-Bone grows a better playoff beard?
Oh, Snugs. I can't grow facial hair.
I think you should try T-Bone.
Oh, I would be going into the arena and I'd have like 2 long strings from my chin.
I think we should.
At least Snuggerud has the beard.
Does he?
It's there.
Yeah, he's got the scruffle.
Yeah.
You don't even have the scruffle, T-Bone.
How long do you think it would take for you to get to where me or Alex are?
Oh, I can't do it. It comes in patch. I can't do it.
Can you just please try for the playoffs? It's the playoff beard.
So, man.
Try it, and I want to see what it looks like.
Stash, okay? How's that?
No, I need a beard. The stash is in November.
Yeah, and even the must. It doesn't. I don't know, man. It's
tough,
frustrating.
Man. Hey, we've all got our limitations.
Rub some Miracle Grow on it.
Steven Matt's already up to 3 strikeouts through the first 2 innings.
Took the over. Love it.
Hope you were able to cash in that bet. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We do want to hear from you guys. The Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. What has this season been like for you as a fan to follow? And what are your expectations going into the first round matchup? That's what we're going to answer coming up next. How do we feel about the Blues going up against the Jets? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues last night took down the Utah Hockey Club and clinched their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs as they will meet up with the Winnipeg Jets in round one. And we'll have all the coverage for you here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Cardinals currently in action as it's the rubber match of their three-game set with the Houston Astros, and they trail 1-0 in the home half of the second. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
We're going to have a full deep dive on the Blues versus the Jets over the next couple of days. We're going to try to get as many people on as possible to break this thing down in every possible way. We'll get the nerdy numbers look at it. We'll get the former players' perspective on it. We'll get a Jets beat writer on it. We'll do everything we possibly can. But today is our first opportunity to just look at it from the 30,000-foot view. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Blues are going to be playing the Winnipeg Jets once again in the first round of the NHL playoffs. Alex, this is a matchup that we saw really about a week and a half ago now. Blues lost that game 3-1. The Blues will not have, I don't think, Dylan Holloway in this series. They are not expected to have Nikolai Ehlers in this series. So a couple teams, both with big-time young wingers that are not expected to play for them in this one. How do you feel about the Blues going into this series? How do you think they stack up against Winnipeg?
I think they stack up well with Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg has the advantage, and Captain Obvious over here, it's the President's Trophy team. Of course they stack up well against the Blues. I wouldn't put it so far in Winnipeg's favor. Like, here's an example. Frank Saravalli on Daily Faceoff was talking about this earlier today, and he was saying, I don't know what position I would give the Blues an edge over the Jets in. It's not forward. It's not on defense. It's definitely not in net. I disagree with that. I would give the Blues the edge in net, because I haven't seen Connor Hellebuck come through with them. I have seen Jordan Binnington do that. Now, if you're going to go off of, well, his numbers don't look good this regular season, sure, fine. But look at the postseason and look at what Connor Hellebuck has been versus Jordan Binnington. I would give the Blues a slight edge on defense, because when they're at full health, I think the Blues have more experience on the back end, and I think they have more offensive upside on the back end. Now, do they have liabilities? Sure. I think Justin Falk can be that. I think Nick Leddy can be that. Even Ryan Suter can be that. But I could look at the Winnipeg Jets and say, well, two of their guys have been in and out of the lineup a lot this season, and Logan Stanley and I forget who their other third-pair defenseman is. So I don't think this is as clear-cut as, oh, well, Winnipeg's got the advantage. Winnipeg is, in my opinion, a better offensive team without the Blues having Dylan Holloway, because I think they've got four lines that they can roll at you. Even without Nikolai Ehlers, they still have Connor. They still have Scheifele. They've got Gabe Vilardi. They've got Alex Iafallo, Adam Lowry. They can beat you offensively. But I don't think this is as clear-cut as, oh, well, they're the better team in every category.
I agree, but not with as much certainty as you do. I think the Winnipeg Jets do have the deeper forward groups right now. Again, that's because Dylan Holloway's out. If Dylan Holloway's in, I might be speaking a different tune right now. But with Holloway out, I think they might be a little deeper up front. I think defensively, it's probably similar, with Winnipeg being slightly better, or at least more certain in that group. And then in net, I just don't know, man. Like, Hellebuck is amazing. The guy is one of, you could make a pretty strong argument for Hellebuck to be the best goalie in the NHL right now. It's not a hard argument to make. But Binnington does have the big game thing. And so it becomes a question of, what do you trust more right now in a playoff series? Do you trust the guy that has always stood on his head when it comes to the biggest games, the biggest moments? We just saw that in the Four Nations. Or do you trust the guy that just consistently has been one of the best among his peers? I don't know. I would say probably closer to a push.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty close. I think Winnipeg is the better team right now, and Vegas is giving you about a 35% chance to win this series. That feels about right to me. I would not pick the Blues. I will be picking the Winnipeg Jets to win this thing in probably 5, maybe 6 games. I just think they are the better team. I think they are more set up to win right now, again, because Dylan Holloway's not in. If Holloway was playing in this series, and I don't want to make too much of one injury, but I think it is that much, I would give the Blues a very real chance of being able to take down the Winnipeg Jets, and I'd probably pick it to go 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I think this is going to go 6 or 7 games, and I could see it go either way. I would put it at like a 45-55 in favor of Winnipeg, and it's just because you could find the confidence. They've got Parayko back. They're going to be healthy on the defensive side. And look, I regardless of how people feel, the last 2 seasons for Connor Hellebuyck in the playoffs, an .864 save percentage and an .886 save percentage. Jordan Binnington, we all know in clinching scenarios, he is a masterpiece. The physicality is the part that I'm going to be very curious about, because Winnipeg plays a lot like the Blues did in 2019. 100%. They will hit you every way, shape, or form. And how banged up is this Blues team? Because you have been playing playoff hockey since February. Because at some point, Winnipeg is going to crush you. And how do you respond to that? Are you able to get to the front of the net? Because that last game we saw, the Blues weren't willing to go there. And without Dylan Holloway, you don't have the ability to roll 4 lines. But here's why I think it's going to be tighter. I think Jim Montgomery is the better coach. I think he makes better in-game decisions than what Scott Arniel does with the Winnipeg Jets. And what happens when it's back on the Blues sheet of ice?
So one thing that I will be curious about, what happens if the Blues win game 1?
Dude, that's a great point.
That is something that I think really changes. And it is, some of the X Factor stuff can be like a little overstated, right? But in this series, all of the pressure is on Winnipeg.
Yep.
All of it. There is zero pressure on the St. Louis Blues. Dude, mission accomplished. You made it to the playoffs. That was the stated goal from day one of this season, from everybody inside of the organization. Everything from here found money. So you can play free, you can play loose. Like, there is no pressure on the Blues. The pressure game was last night. Mm-hmm. That was the game where there was pressure. It's really the last 4 games for them was all of the pressure in the world was on them. Now it changes. Now it shifts over to Winnipeg, because this is the team that can't get over the hump. And now you've got a big injury to deal with once again with Ehlers, and Hellebuyck is not only going up against his playoff demons, but also that dude, the boogeyman, is in the other net right now.
Yeah.
That always seems to do it against him. Did it in the Four Nations, did it in 2019 in that Stanley Cup run for the Blues. So, if the Blues find a way to win game 1 of this series, steals home ice for the Blues as well, now game 2 in Winnipeg, what do you think their media is going to be asking them?
Dude.
Does it feel like it's the same thing all over again? Is it happening again? That's the only thing they're going to be hearing for the next 2 to 3 days as they lead into that game 2 of the series. And then certainly game 3 as it shifts back here to St. Louis. All of the pressure goes on to Winnipeg. So in every series, yeah, of course, you want to win game 1. It's like coming out and saying, get off to a hot start in a hockey game. Of course, yeah, that's the goal for every team in every game that's ever been played. In this series specifically, dude, game 1 is massive.
Yeah.
Because it completely changes the way that these two teams react on a human level.
Yep. To me, you have to, if you can put a sliver of doubt into the mindset of that Winnipeg Jets team, you're golden. Go back to that game 1 of the 2019 matchup. Winnipeg, and I remember this specifically because in the second period, man, they were peppering Jordan Binnington. They put 11 shots on goal, and they didn't get anything by him. And you could just kind of see once the Blues scored that goal and Bozak scored it with 2 minutes left to play in the third period to take the lead, you just felt it was cool. Winnipeg's starting to doubt themselves. That's what needs to take place. It's weird to put pressure on game 1 of a series, but man, if you could win a game 1 in Winnipeg, you're putting doubt into the minds of They've got 100%. 7 guys that played in that 2019 series against the Blues, including Connor Hellebuyck. All you need to do is put the doubt of, man, we can't beat Jordan Binnington. Man, Connor Hellebuyck is starting to struggle once again. If you put doubt, that's where you can knock a team off of its pedestal.
I want to answer a couple of these from the YouTube chat. People are upset with me, as you could probably imagine.
What'd you do now, man?
I don't think the Blues are going to win this series. We got this from...
People get upset with us a lot.
From Bobby Bowe. Mother bleepers are acting like Holloway is McDavid and Draisaitl rolled into one.
Kind of was during the Four Nations break.
We also got this from DJ Patty Cakes. Time to replace BK on the show.
Whoa.
So here's what I'm trying to say, and maybe I'm not doing a good job of it, and that's on me. I got to communicate better. I think that the Blues could win this series, like Vegas is saying, about 35% of the time. In other words, if you simulate this series 3 times, I think the Blues win 1 of them. I don't think there's some massive underdog in this series. I don't. And the Holloway injury, to me, is a really, really big deal because Winnipeg is built similarly to you, where they are a deep group of 4 lines, and they play with that physicality. If you had Holloway, you might be able to stack up a little better against them. If he was in this series, I think it's pretty close to 50-50. That's quite a statement in favor of the Blues, considering Winnipeg has been the best team in the NHL this year.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to overlook the fact that, once again, Winnipeg has been the best team in the league. You're going up against the President's Trophy team. So saying you're not quite as good as them is not a shot at the Blues. Nobody in the NHL was as good as this team all season long. Your team was amazing down the stretch. Unbelievable. And we've given them praise now for an hour and 45 minutes. And they deserve all of it. Now that we are discussing what is this series going to be like, I don't know is the honest to God answer. If I'm going to prognosticate it, I think that I would lean in favor of Winnipeg. Yeah. That's not a hot take. That's what Vegas is saying, where all of the money is going to be. That is what I would imagine the vast majority of the national analysts will be saying. And I bet you most of the people here locally, in their heart of hearts, believe the same thing to be true. I'm not saying anything out of turn. I'm simply saying I think Winnipeg is a slightly better team in this series. And if I'm going to pick one of these two teams to win it, I would be picking Winnipeg.
You're not.
That's it.
You're not saying anything that's incorrect. Guys, Winnipeg allowed 11 fewer goals than the second best defensive team in the National Hockey League. They're amazing. 190 goals this season. They scored 275 goals this season, which is fifth most in the National Hockey League. They have the best goaltender. They have a line that was for about 2 months with Connor Velarde and Scheifele, the best offensive line in the National Hockey League. And dude, they are big. You thought the Vegas Golden Knights were big on the back end. Listen to some of these heights: 6'7", 6'4", 6'4", 6'2", 6'1", 6'1". The smallest guy that they have on their team is Josh Morrissey at 6 foot, 195 pounds. This is not going to be a cupcake walk.
Like, they have two of the top 10 scorers in the NHL this year.
Yeah, like this is going to be a massive isn't the proper word. This is going to be a big disadvantage for the Blues. Plus, they're 1-2-1 against this team in the regular season, and the only win that they had was a 2-1 win in Winnipeg, where I believe Joel Hofer put on a show.
And they might win. The Blues can absolutely win this series.
They totally
and I just
can.
mentioned, like, part of that is the human element of the pressure shifts to Winnipeg. They win Blues win game one, pressure shifts to Winnipeg, and they crumble. That is absolutely in play. And, dude, nobody will be praising them more than me if that happens. I promise you. I'll give them all the credit in the world. I didn't think this team was making the playoffs, so yeah, I've already been wrong about them. I hope they continue to prove me wrong. Nothing would be better, personally or professionally. I like going to playoff games. And on a professional level, dude, them continuing to play is good for our revenue, and it's good for our ratings. So I'm all in favor of them playing as long as humanly possible. I just would personally pick Winnipeg. I think they're the slightly better team right now.
I do believe, though, that the fact that, like you mentioned, the Blues have nothing to lose. Like, this is a team that's getting into the playoffs. It's like, cool, man, we weren't supposed to be here. Those teams are very dangerous. And I think that game against Utah last night was very important to put a little spark of confidence back in that, like, Holloway would be great. We can still win without Dylan Holloway. You didn't just beat Utah. You put 6 goals up on Utah. That's a team that had been playing some really good hockey.
100%.
So they got confidence back in that game, which to me is a very dangerous thing for the Blues going into that series.
All right, this got a little serious. I want to have a little bit of fun coming up on the other side. We're going to dive into the junk drawer. Alex, you have got a bloopers reel from the Blues broadcast this season. We're going to take a listen to that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Rhino Shield. And Darren wanted me to shout out RF Me and MC Mechanical Services because they just purchased the work with Rhino Shield for their commercial property. It's a property in Valley Park where they're moving their world headquarters from Fenton, and they used Rhino Shield because the renovations that they had, some of the pictures that I saw, a worn down looking building, just looked tired, needed a facelift. And this is where Rhino Shield comes into play. Because look, as a business owner, you don't want the exterior of your business to look worn and old and worn down. You want it to look new. And that's where Rhino Shield's work comes into play. And it's not just paint that they're using. They're using a ceramic coating that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint that you're going to buy. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, which is going to save you money on your electric bills. Plus, it's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. So whether your business needs a facelift or your house needs a facelift, call Darren today. Have him come out, walk you through the whole process. I used it back in 2020, and our house looks brand new like it did after Rhino Shield's work. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, you had some kind of a bloopers reel that you wanted to play today?
Yeah, all credit goes to Grant Francis for this, our producer on the Blues broadcasts. He's always listening throughout the season. And so Kerbs, Joey, and myself, we say some weird-ish on the broadcasts. And when we do, Grant is like, oh, that's totally going into a blooper reel. And so at the end of the regular season, we always put together this blooper reel to take you back through the weird moments that happen with Kerbs, Joey, and yours truly. And this one I thought was the best we've had in 3 years.
Jordan, I want to let you know how much I appreciate you because you're the only Blues player that agrees with me that the penguin exhibit at the zoo smells good. You acknowledged it yesterday.
Nuts.
Coming off the elevator. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it, and we share something in common. We both love the smell of the penguin exhibit.
I don't know if I remember that, but
yes, you do.
Yeah, I don't know. That might just be you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. All right, thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you a little bit.
What a... He admitted it last night. Oh, I'm going to get him for that. He just called me out. Oh, I'm not happy.
Right now, I feel like I should be apologizing to Dan Kelly, to Ken Wilson, to Ron Jacober, to everybody that's done play-by-play in a Blues booth. But
you like the smell of the feet too, Joe?
I love my kids' summer feet. Like if they're in Crocs, if they've worn Crocs all day at the park, get those Crocs off.
Okay, so when you went in to have your team,
give them to me. I want to eat them.
What is happening?
In my belly. Yum, 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 yum. Give me them toes.
Goliachanik gets it, and he clears it out. I think I've now officially said his name 4 different ways.
And they're probably all right.
Yeah.
They used to, the players, the big muscles are psoas. It's right on their abdomen. Psoas, they call it.
Well, mine was psoas tight that I was unable to do things.
What did you say, punitive? Yeah, you like that word? What does that mean? I don't even know.
You know what punitive means?
I don't know what punitive means.
It's something that causes... It's
okay, you can't use the word in the definition.
No, I'm saying if something is punitive.
Oh, you did it again?
I'm setting up the. All right, hang on. Let's finish with the power play, and then we'll talk. The stick of Toropchenko, the butt of the stick of Toropchenko, was below his armpit. These guys have been absolutely awful tonight. I don't know how 4 referees on the ice missed that call. An absolute joke of a miss from Hebert and Furman South. And this is why guys like Hebert and South and the other 2 officials just make you cringe sometimes when you see their name on the list for a game.
Right, major penalty on the play. The play will be under review.
So there's a major penalty on who? It's a major penalty on who?
Yeah, right.
Like, come on, guys, wake up.
I don't think they know.
Be better.
You know, Kerb, the first year they warned them. I don't think any penalties were really thrown out. That was a rule that it just has kind of simmered off after the first couple of years. I think the refs just say screw it. Sorry, I forgot I was on the air for a second.
I'm just watching the referees talk, and then we'll get, because I don't even know what to tell you until they tell us. The Blues ended up in this with an extra roughing penalty. I have no idea, but again, I'm not surprised.
St. Louis 71, Hunter Crowley slashing.
All these guys tonight, never mind. Joe, it's hockey halftime. You can take it, so I don't get in trouble.
I think that's Sam. At the board here, that's Sam Sovich. Sam.
Keep going.
Sam
Oskevich.
Sam Oskevich. There it is. Sam Oskevich. There it is.
Yeah, nice. Keep going.
I think he's Sam Oskevich.
Bennington able to come out of the net, keeping it moving over to Nick Leddy. Spins that one out to center ice. The touch puck, that's it. The puck is touched over the line by Bolduc. They circle back, and with 1 minute to go in regulation, Thomas has it. It's our tribute to Mel Brooks out here in Hollywood, right? Now, not Mel Brooks, Mel Blunt. Now, a tribute to Mel Brooks, too. Let me get a harump out of that guy. I know you didn't have a nose job because it's still, you got to.
What is this? Rip on Joe?
Yeah, we got this like brutal.
I know. My God. You still need to use the protractor to breathe. I get it. Okay.
Oh,
all right.
You know what? Come out of here.
And this was just part 2. We had a whole nother one. Grant did like 8 minutes of these blooper reels. Oh, man.
My favorite thing is Kerbs getting after the refs.
Dude, ours
it's one
too.
of my favorite things in hockey.
When he does that on broadcasts, I don't know if I've ever seen Grant Francis happier. When Kerbs loses on the officials, Grant's like, oh, yeah, here we go. And we get the audio. Kerbs even said, he goes, I'm going to be better this year about it.
Yeah. He was. I would say, like, there was only 2 minutes in there.
Yeah, part 1, he only had 1 comment on it. Part 2, though, there was a lot of them. But, yeah, no, my favorite's when he and Joe get just into random conversation situation.
Sure.
We
Penguins.
The Penguins, the part one that we had, Joe just went on a story about his buddy of his who had a ACL replacement surgery on his guinea pig, and they went on a 2-minute segment on that one. So I'm telling you, it is gold when those two guys are in the broadcast.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, can you post these segments, please? I think that's the plan.
Grant's going to put them both out.
To put these out on social media, so be sure to check those out over there. At 101 ESPN is where you can go to find it on Twitter. You can always, by the way, follow us on Facebook as well. Mike Ryder does an unbelievable job of keeping everything up to date over there. We've got Instagram, we've got Threads, we've got Blue Sky, whatever it is that you've got social media. TikTok, we're on TikTok. Whatever it is you've got, if you want to follow 101 ESPN, you can find all of our content over there, wherever it may be. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll continue talking about the Cardinals, give you the latest update in their game today as they are once again getting shut out. The offense that I said was awesome has not looked so awesome in the last 2 games. We'll get into that in 15 minutes. But next, Alex, what was the piece for you that unlocked the Blues' potential this year? I've got my nominee for that. I'll hear yours coming up next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys have a mic drop that you'd like to send in, go ahead and do that right now. 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. That app is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. On the app, you go over to the mic drop feature, leave that mic drop on how you feel about the team this season, especially now that they are officially into the playoffs. This is a team that I did not see this coming with. I don't know how anybody, honestly, could have seen it coming. If you did, God bless you. You're a better fan than I. But I lost all faith, and especially after Parayko got hurt at the deadline, man, I didn't see them going on this kind of a run.
Never in doubt.
One of the things that unlocked the Blues' potential was hiring Jim Montgomery. That was a huge piece, obviously. They also did the offer sheets, and that was a massive part of what's led to this. Alex, I think the underrated storyline for the season, though, is Cam Fowler and what he has meant to the lineup, just with the stability and his presence on the blue line, because that is a spot where, man, they did not have much stability this year. Broberg missed some time. Parayko missed an extended period of time. Letty was out for a while. Falk has been up and down in terms of the nature of his play this year. Suter is 40 years old. Like, you just can only expect so much of him if he's going to play in that top four capacity. Fowler was exactly what the doctor ordered. And honestly, even more than that. Mm-hmm. You had these numbers last night on postgame. With the Ducks last year, Cam Fowler had 4 points. He was a -7. He was averaging 21 minutes on the ice. With the Blues, he played 51 games. He had 9 goals, 27 assists, and 36 points in 51 games. As a defenseman, man, that is a pace of like 60 points for a defenseman. And it's probably worth noting, he was a +19 in 51 games for the Blues, which is a pace of about +30 over the course of a full season.
The 10th most points among defensemen in that time frame that he was with the Blues. It's the 11th most goals in that time frame among defensemen, and his +19 is 12th best in the National Hockey League.
I mean, you could make a pretty good argument he was a top 10 defenseman in the NHL since being acquired by the St. Louis Blues. Yeah. That, to me, is the move that unlocked what this team was capable of. Do you have a different one? Do you think that would have been your move as well?
Yeah, that would have been my move as well. I would say, like, tied for first is still Holloway and Broberg. And the only reason I could hear the Fowler argument is even with Holloway and Broberg at the beginning of the season, it still wasn't enough to get this team to this potential. Now, some of that's Jim Montgomery versus Drew Bannister. But, I mean, it's hard to disagree with Cam Fowler. To me, with Cam Fowler, that trade, first of all, that was your trade deadline move. People were upset about not making a move at the trade deadline when Broberg went down. They made that move. They just made it on December 14th, because if they would have made that move at the trade deadline, you're talking about multiple first-round picks to get Cam Fowler away. And they didn't. They got him for 50% of his contract, locked up for 1 more year, and they got him 2 months before the trade deadline. But when you brought him in, you brought in a top-pair defenseman. You brought in another guy that goes into your top 4 that you were lacking without Torrey Krug. And whether Krug was healthy or injured, he just wasn't playing like a top 4 defenseman. And what they were doing was they were playing guys out of position. They had Falk playing as your third best defenseman. At the time, second best, because Broberg was injured. They were playing Suter as your third best defenseman. Tyler Tucker were getting reps up there. Like Scott Perunovich was getting reps in your top 4. And what it did was it pushed everybody back down into comfortable territory. Parayko, you're still alpha dog. But guess what? Falk, you get to go back to being the second pair defenseman, where, look, you can have success with. Broberg, you don't have to be the number 2. Get to be the number 3 for right now. You'll get to number 2.
You also always had Parayko and Broberg on the ice, basically.
Yep, it's Suter. Go back down to being the third pair defenseman like we brought you in to be. Kessel, Tucker, go back to being extra defenseman. Perunovich, go back to being a third pair guy. Fowler brought back stability, but he also brought in offense that they weren't getting from their defensemen, and he brought back playmaking ability, and he's helped that power play too. So yeah, I could make a strong argument as to why Cam Fowler was a difference maker once he was acquired on December 14th.
From the 314, guys, I think the biggest move might have been trading away Saad, really just releasing Saad. It opened up the opportunity for Bolduc and allowed the lines to settle in with more consistency under Jim Montgomery. That is another move that we really don't talk a whole lot about.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that is on the Saad side of things, because the Blues were going to move on either way, right? They were sending him down to the AHL potentially. They were moving on from Brayden Saad at the NHL level. Saad was the one that decided, you know what? I have money that's owed to me. I would rather have another opportunity elsewhere. I would rather just go on my own volition and try to recoup some of this money by playing into that, as opposed to just having what was previously owed. Because it was owed, man. This is money that was guaranteed to Brandon Saad, and he willingly said, I'm good. I'll go play elsewhere. I'm good. I've made my money. I want to go get another opportunity. That was a big one, no doubt about it, because it opened up an opportunity for a young guy, and it allowed him to get the runway. It's really what the Cardinals are trying to do this year, where it became, Bolduc, you're in the lineup every night. Let's see what you can do for us.
But you know what it also did too? It told Holloway and Neighbors your top 6 forwards. Like, people will go to Bolduc and say you're in the lineup consistently, but they were squeezing Sada into being a top 6 winger for him. And now when he moved on, it was Holloway, you're a top 6 forward. Neighbors, you're a top 6 forward for us. And it does give Bolduc the ability to play. You were still finding ways to fit Brandon Saad into your lineup, and after you moved on from it, it's like, cool, now our lines fill out perfectly and we can find the chemistry.
What a year. What a year it's been, man.
Well, and how about the WTF line, too? Like, even Jim Montgomery was still trying to figure out what to do with that line. And then he finally said, nope, this is our identity line, and he stuck to it. And, like, again, that's 2 players that were either not here or in and out of the lineup last season. Foxa wasn't here last year. You didn't have your 4th-line centerman was Oscar Sundqvist, who was not healthy, and Nathan Walker was up and down from the AHL. And then all of a sudden, it's, nope, we got our identity line, and they put him back in the lineup, and they play consistently together. So that's part of it. You know, the offer sheet guys are a part of this one. Tyler Tucker stepping in when the Parayko injury happened and him playing well. It does give a lot of the 2019 vibes because of all of the storylines that have come away from the Blues getting to this position.
All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys want to get your thoughts in on what the season was like to follow as a fan, get them in right now over on the 101 ESPN app. This one comes from Daniel.
Seeing where we started the season under Bannister, then transitioning to Montgomery, I definitely feel like we are playing with house money. You know, we've had a hell of a second half of the season, coming back and, you know, winning 12 games in a row. I think that we have a good shot of making it a series with Winnipeg. But, you know, if we would somehow get to the second round, I think that would just be amazing. And that would be something to hang our hats on. So let's go Blues.
Dude, it's already been a successful season in my mind. Like, just getting here, that is a success. Yeah, A+. Yep. You get all of the accolades possible. If they get to the second round, my God, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, I will be saying absurd things.
We have seen a few texts from people on the President's Trophy curse. It is a thing. Very few of these teams go on to win the cup. It's very rare that it's almost like the Heisman Trophy thing, where when a lot of the time, your quarterback ends up winning the Heisman Trophy. Very rarely does that team end up going on to win the national championship in college football. President's Trophy teams, though, I think it does get overstated a little bit on how often they lose in the first round. So last year, the Rangers went to the conference finals. Before that, first round for Boston. That was the Monty team that ended up losing after having the President's Trophy. That was Florida, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was Florida that went on that run down the stretch.
Before that, second round, first round for Tampa against Columbus, and then second round, conference finals, second round cup, first round for Vancouver back in 2012. So in the last 13 seasons, only 2 President's Trophy teams lost in the first round. It was Boston in 23 and Tampa back in 2019.
And I know it's a cop-out answer, but honestly, look to that Boston upset as to a position that the Blues could be in. Because Florida, remember, that was that Florida team that went on the stretch, came out of the All-Star break, and they went on that run, and that was when Matthew Tkachuk said, look, we've been playing playoff hockey since January. And at the time, that Florida Panthers team, 92 points in 82 games. They were a plus 17. They scored 290 goals. Does any of this sound familiar to people right now? Like, don't overlook what that Florida team did against Boston. Boston was a juggernaut that nobody wanted to deal with, but Florida had been playing playoff hockey for the longest stretch of time from January on.
All right, last mic drop here. This comes from Nick.
I thought going into the season, the Blues had a chance to make the playoffs, but they kind of just seemed to get off to a slow start. But then once they brought in Jim Montgomery, obviously everything kind of flipped, and there was just a new energy to the team. But what I appreciated most was like Tom Stillman and Doug Armstrong being so transparent with the fans. But then also Tom Stillman, when he talked about like the RSNs and issues that may come from that, they basically said that we're not just going to punt on these seasons until we can get it figured out. They are dedicated to winning and putting at least a fun and exciting product on the ice. Can't say any of that for the Cardinals in Mozeliak and DeWitt. And I'm super excited. And what's great about this, and you guys touched on it earlier, is that this could very easily be a 5 to 10 year window, or even a possibility. I know it's really high thinking, but of a dynasty kind of like the Hawks had, where they could win 3 championships because all these guys are so young and they're all coming up together. So it's really exciting.
God,
Yes,
not
Nick.
only did he throw...
Where was that cut when I needed it for
Somebody
the
give him the
open?
conductor hat.
Not only did he throw strays at the Cardinals there, he also is talking about dynasties. I love it, Nick.
An all-time mic drop there.
God. Yep, that's it.
I think the comparison to the Cardinals is an interesting and somewhat fair one because of the messaging. I would also say, like, the structure of the sport, the cap system that is in place for the NHL, where they all share revenues and they're all like, the money is pooled together and then redistributed evenly among the teams. I do think that is a really important aspect there. It's why I have argued in favor of that for Major League Baseball, but neither here nor there. The point remains, like, yeah, the messaging has been really strong by the Blues, and it's something that gives them a little bit of a step ahead of where the St. Louis Cardinals are, because their messaging has been the opposite of strong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Starting a dynasty. You guys think the Florida Panthers are considered a dynasty right now?
No.
Not yet.
I think I win one more. I think you got to win.
Yeah, you can't
2 or
win
3.
one cup and become a dynasty.
But they're on the verge of it. Are we correct?
Not when we kick their butt in the cup final.
Would you
won't
consider
make
them
it.
a dynasty if they win this year? I don't.
I think so. I mean, they would
Yeah,
be
I mean,
their
the 3 Stanley Cup finals and you win 2 of them.
in 3 straight years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd call that probably.
And you
dynasty.
unseated the number 1 seed 4 years ago.
You think 2 is enough to be a dynasty?
It's not so much winning it, it's getting there. If you get there 3 times in 3 years, yeah, I mean, it's hard to deny that. Plus, you've got a roster, to Nick's point, of a ton of dudes that are fairly young and are going to be around for a long time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, just going back to that Panthers that beat Boston in the first round, the final 24 games of the season, 625 points percentage, 14-8-2.
The Panthers might more. I'm thinking they might need one more on top.
I think
of
at least
winning
another appearance.
I think you need like 3 and 5 essentially, or 3 and 6 is what I would have to say.
I think they'd be on the, if they go this year, win or lose, if they go this year, they'd be on the cusp of becoming a dynasty to me. I don't know that I would totally be ready to call them that yet.
It's the makings of a dynasty, and that's where the Blues are at right now.
And the Blues could be the team that is head-to-head against them. This is the Cavs and Warriors of our time in the NHL.
Yep. We've got Steph Curry.
Coming up in 15 minutes, who would you consider to be the Blues, Steph Curry?
Great question.
Cairo, I guess.
Thomas.
I guess he's
I think
flashy.
it's got to be Thomas.
I think you got to be flashy to be
Thomas is your Klay Thompson.
Yeah, or yeah.
Oh,
Or
see,
your
I would go Kyrie to
Parayko's your
Klay Thompson.
Parayko's not.
No, yeah, Parayko can't be Draymond.
He's too nice.
Yeah, he's way too nice.
Well, I think the thing about Draymond is like it's a
Booch Davis would be your Draymond. That man headbutted somebody in his second game as a Blue.
Well, Draymond is like 6'6", and he plays center, and he can also go out and shoot it a little bit. He's a great like point forward. So he's just a weird
like
player
Booch
that is
Davis.
different than
Play
most
center.
people in the league.
Yes, I played center, and he probably shouldn't be. Should be a power forward.
Yeah, it's probably Booch.
Yeah, I'd go Thomas as Steph because Steph's the leader, and I'd go Kyrie as Klay because he's the sharpshooter.
See, I think Clay's not flash. I think Steph's flashy.
Klay is.
I think Klay is Thomas.
Klay to me is Holloway, actually, now that I think about this a little bit more. All-around game, probably doesn't get talked about enough nationally. Like, brings everything to the table. Klay was a great defender, excellent shooter.
Look at us comparing basketball to the NHL.
That's probably your version of
this got out of hand.
Dylan Holloway. All right, coming up next, let's give you a Cardinals update. They have still not scored. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals have scored. I mentioned going to the break. They had not scored yet. That has changed. Lars Nootbaar just hit a 3-run bomb. 2 walks today, the homer, 3 ribbies now because of that with Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
Oh, hell yeah. Nootbaar a bomb? Oh, yeah. Oh, we are back.
You'll love to see it. Cardinals up 3-1, bottom of the 5th inning. Steven Matz had a heck of a day. 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, no walks allowed, Alex. They were hoping to get him to right around 65 pitches. They extended that a little bit, went up to 71 pitches for Steven Matz today. Had a nice overall day against the Houston Astros. But the big story here is, once again, your leadoff hitter, Lars Nootbaar, who's getting on base 43% of the time so far this year. Again, on base a couple of times with the walks, then hit the home run. That guy's been great. This is what the Cardinals were hoping to see out of him so far this season. It was A, make good on the power that they had seen in spurts, but not consistently, and B, just stay healthy, man. I know we're only 18 games into the regular season, so he needs to do it more often. He's got to stay healthy for like 140, not just 18, but so far so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, Lars Nootbaar's day today is the prototypical Brant Brown, why I'm so excited about him being the hitting coach. 2 walks and then a home run. Like, we heard BT tell that to us. Like, Brant Brown's speech to these players is home runs aren't hit, they're pitched. And Lars Nootbaar's approach at the plate is just showcasing that for you. And it comes down to finding certain pieces to round out your roster so that you know where your holes are at next year. And, man, think about this. We're talking about Brendan Donovan, who just got a hit as a 3-hole hitter. We're just talking about Lars Nootbaar coming up with big at-bats, not just today, but all season long as your leadoff hitter. You're starting to see these guys fill the voids that have been the biggest question mark for the Cardinals over the years. You're right, BK. Noot's got to stay healthy. You've got to see it from game 1 to 162, and even if there's injuries in there, how short are they or how long are they? But, man, they've got some pieces right now that should get people excited about what the future can be.
Yeah, and I mean, your point on Brant Brown and kind of the approach he's given these guys, it's the thing I've gone to when we talked about, I think it was yesterday, about the, hey, look, they're hitting aces right now, right? They're hitting some of the best arms in baseball. Well, why are they doing that? It's because when there is a mistake, they are taking advantage of it. Nootbaar did that on the home run, that Donovan hit that you just referenced, that he just got on board. What was it? Curveball, middle of the zone. Can't let that pitch go by. You got to take advantage of that. That's exactly what they're doing. And they are getting positive returns on just about everybody. I don't think there's a player that we looked at and said, okay, I've got some questions on like what he's going to be this year. I don't think you're getting a negative result so far. Now, that can change. It's a very long season. But the first 3 weeks in, right now, everything looks like a positive return.
Yeah, Walker's to be determined. I think he looks more confident. He certainly looks a lot better in right field. Like, defensively, I would say he's been a net positive so far this season. But offensively, he's on the ground a ton. I'm not super worried about that. I want to make that clear. Not super, whatever. It is what it is. That's who Walker's going to be. And I think he could change that over time. But some of the results overall are just like, I'm a little skeptical that this is going to continue to be this way if the process doesn't change a little bit. But we'll see on him. He again, looks more confident. It doesn't look as bad as it did last year. I just don't know if it's the same level of excitement as it is for most of the other guys that we bring up, whether that's Nootbaar, Donovan, Scott, what we had seen previously from Mason Wynn before he got hurt, Ivan Herrera as well, Matthew Liberatore in the rotation. All of those guys have given you serious reasons to get excited about them. But the fact that I can identify one guy that maybe isn't quite living up to what those hopes could have been this year, that's where it gets similar to the Blues. And I'm not trying to say this will be the same thing as what it was with the Blues, but I remember early on in the season, T-Bone, you referenced it earlier today. We had talked about it similarly of a lot of these young guys are basically doing what we wanted them to do. The record isn't where we wanted it to be, but the results are looking pretty good so far. And that would have made, even if they didn't make the playoffs this year, it would have made this season into a success, in my opinion, for the Blues. The same thing can be true for the Cardinals, regardless of what the record is at the end of the year, whether they win 80 games, 85 games, whatever, somewhere in between maybe. If you keep getting these kinds of positive returns from the young guys, it can be, at least for me, considered to be a successful season.
Yeah, as long as you don't have to go into the press conference at the end of the season, whether that is after they lose or win in the playoffs or they just don't make the playoffs, and you don't have to hear Heim up there being like, yeah, look, we got to get another season under our belts of whoever the young player might be. Heim should be able to say in that press conference, hey, we know what we have. We're going to pick a direction, and we're going to be able to make that happen this offseason. He doesn't necessarily have to say, like, oh, yeah, we're going to move on from Jordan Walker because he's not lifting the ball off the ground. But he can say, hey, look, we got the answers we were looking for. And then they can make the adjustments that are necessary rather than having what's felt like really the last 2-3 years maybe, which is, hey, they're kind of stuck in the middle. They don't really know what they've got with the young guys, so they don't want to fully commit to them, and they also don't want to move on from them because they're afraid that it could come back to bite them.
For me, and I mean, we all know that I'm like the ultimate downer on the Cardinals out of this show. It comes down to two things if you want to get people back on board. Get the answers like Tebow mentioned and make the moves. Because there can't be, we know the answers, and then, well, we got to wait to see, or it's too much money for us. And it's not just on Heim, it's on ownership, making sure.
Mean, like in season or off season?
Off season. I mean, like end the season with answers. Look, Newbar is a great leadoff hitter. We've got guys who can be clutch hitters for us. Defensively, we know where players are. We've got a pipeline now with a J.J. Weatherhold, a Quinn Matthews, people that are coming through. Guess what? Our weakness. We've got to go find a middle-of-the-order star bat, or we got to go out there and find an ace pitcher for us to carry us, and then make the moves. Or if the answers are, look, we've got a lot of guys for a few positions that we just don't see are in our future, whether that's Gorman, whether that's Walker, make the decisions and follow through with them. That's how you go from people that are lethargic about the team to, yeah, we're back on board with this team.
It feels almost as if the season has been about, like, are they at home or are they on the road so far this year? Because at home, they've played pretty well. Now, they had disappointing games against the Angels where they lose in extras a couple of times, but extra innings is weird, and sometimes that stuff happens, right? Otherwise, they won the other 4 games. They went to extras twice, won the other 4 games in that first part of the homestand. And then they go on the road. They go out to Boston. Absolute disaster. Then they go out to Pittsburgh, and that first game was no good. And then they lose the game in extras. There was a lot to that game. A lot to that game. So far in this homestand, you're 3-2 against Philly and Houston. We all would have signed up for that. You're up 3-1 right now. You got to close this thing out. If you close this thing out, 4-2 homestand against Philly and Houston, we all would have signed up for that.
Absolutely.
It's been pretty damn successful thus far. So if they can close this thing out, you're right back to 500. Go on the road against the Mets starting tomorrow evening. Hopefully they can take care of business out there as well. But it starts with taking care of business today. They're up 3-1 in the 6th inning. Ryan Fernandez just entered the game. Hopefully he can hand things over to the back end of the bullpen. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, folks, Chris Kerber with you here. And listen, you've been hearing me for a while now talk about classic air care. And it's one simple reason. If I trust them to come to my house to take care of my house, the reason I'm telling you that you can trust them is because the care has been good. And that means something. That integrity, that honesty, that level of care, that level of service, it means something, or you would not hear me talking about them and telling you that you should feel comfortable using them too. With the air conditioner about to be turned on, if you haven't turned it on already, maybe with the spring it goes off and on, make sure you have them out there to maintain the unit. That air conditioning unit is one of the most important things in your house, not only from a safety standpoint, but to keep your house comfortable. And you have to give it normal maintenance like you do your car. Heck, like you do your body with the occasional workout. You've got to give the maintenance that it needs to keep it running and as efficient as possible. Classic Air Care is there to do it. They will take great care of you as they have taken great care of me and my family, and that is who you need to call. You can go online. You can make an appointment at classicaircare.com. They can get out to your house with a quick appointment. Sometimes same-day appointments are available, and make sure that that unit is running efficiently and well. It's really that simple. Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendricks here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues took down the Utah Hockey Club last night, clinching their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where they will have a date with the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll keep you updated on the Blues throughout the playoffs here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Cardinals currently in action right now. Rubber match of their 3-game set with the Houston Astros. They lead 3-1 in the top of the 6th inning thanks to a 3-run homer to dead center from Lars Nootbaar. This Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T1 on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Blues are back in the playoffs. They did so with a clinching victory last night against the Utah Hockey Club. Chris Kerber was on the call for that right here in your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. 6-1 victory for the Blues, and now they will be playing against the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the playoffs. Curbs joins us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Curbs, we appreciate the time as always, man. What's it like for you to hear that? Blues back into the playoffs for the first time since 2022.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's awesome. I just, obviously it's awesome. That's kind of a dumb thing to say, but, you know, I sit back and I'm trying to, you guys know how much I like to kind of keep big picture perspective on things, right? And I'm just, the turnaround that this team did, the vision that they had, I go back to Doug Armstrong's press conference shortly after the trade deadline when they made the trades. You know, of O'Reilly, Barbashev, Tarasenko, and those guys. And he knew what he was giving up. And he said there's going to be some short-term pain for some long-term gain. And he charted a course. He said specifically what he was looking for. And then I look over the last couple of years and how they managed Jake Neighbors, how they managed Zach Bolduc. You know, then what they turned those first-round picks that they got in the trades for those guys into potential prospects. And the only one that we've really seen there, because he already had Snuggerud drafted at that point, is Dvorsky. And we just saw a small snapshot of him this year in his first year pro. And then you see the acquisitions of the offseason, both on the veteran side with some acquisitions, and then on the offer sheet side. Then the aggressiveness of the coaching change, the aggressiveness of getting Cam Fowler before other teams could really get into the mix and raise the price up. And it's just, he had a vision. He was open and honest and transparent about it. And I don't know if just a 2-year miss of the playoffs and the playoffs 3 years was part of that reality then. But my goodness, one, you know, the future's really bright with what we're seeing. But two, to be back in the playoffs, and guys, this was hard. I mean, look at look at these teams and look at who's in the playoffs. And the third place team in the Central Division is 20 games over 500. I mean, that's just not an easy thing to do, but an impressive couple of years of asset management and design to get the team here. Quite impressive.
It really is, Kerbs. And, when we talked in the offseason about the moves that Doug Armstrong was making, we kind of said, is this Doug Armstrong trying to set Alexander Steen up for success for the moment he takes over as general manager? The team seems to be in place. How critical were those moves in terms of long-term picture with Alex Steen taking over?
Listen, yeah, Doug also said that, in that process that, he believes that his job is to make sure that he leaves when he is done, things in a better spot than when he got here. And obviously he took the team to a Stanley Cup championship, but then the fall from grace was quick. And he wanted to leave it in a better spot. I don't know how much of this is about, leave it in a better spot for Alex Steen. I just think it's Doug's competitiveness of how he wants to build a team and the future, and he's doing it. And, I'll tell you something. You go back into some of the famous quotes, too, about, put a knife in her eye and twist it, that kind of stuff, and things, all those kind of things. I mean, here's the one thing that sports fans in St. Louis know. Doug Armstrong has said something. You see his competitiveness. You see his bluntness. I mean, who doesn't love that line of when they were asking him if he would have put the offer sheets out there if Ken Holland was still general manager, and he said, I'd have done it to my mother if it meant improving our team, right? I mean, and then the thing of it is what he has said, and not every move is great, not every move works out perfectly, but in the big picture, you make enough good moves, it works, and it's come to fruition. Now, how deep of a run can this team make? I have no idea. But to be honest with you guys, let's go back just 2 months ago. I'm sitting here trying to explain to you guys how getting a top 5 overall pick could be a really good thing for this team. So, I mean, you take what's right in front of you and you keep going with it, and you've got to be really excited with where they're at.
Curbs, last thing that I wanted to get to with you is a comment from Brayden Schenn on your guys' broadcast last night. You asked him about what this means for him personally, given what the trade deadline decision was for him and for the Blues on whether or not he was going to be here long term. And it was a big one. He decided to stay. He wanted to be a part of this. He wanted to see it through. He thought this team had the potential to do exactly what they accomplished last night. You've been around this team, Curbs, for 20-plus years as a broadcaster here. What was it like for you to see that rewarded for Brayden Schenn?
Well, it's an interesting question, BK, because from our vantage point, obviously we were interviewing Jimmy Snuggerud and Steve Ott right after the game, and that's all happening while the TV guys are doing their thing. But I just looked at Brayden Schenn's face as that camera zoomed in on him, and there seemed a real level of satisfaction. Not satisfaction in terms of the job is done and we're good, but just satisfaction of the moment. And that's why I asked him that question. To watch him grow over the last 2 years into what the role of the captaincy means, to watch him struggle last year a little bit on the ice, at times not producing the way he wanted to see what he's done with Neighbors and now Snuggerud from a pure leadership standpoint. I mean, he really is taking that role of captaincy seriously, and I think there's some real personal pride for Brayden Schenn. He knows what it's like to be a part of this team. He's under contract for another few years. He knows what's coming. He wants to be part of it. You don't want to have to move your family if you like where you are and they like where he is. And to face what he faced, depending on what reports you listen to, whether or not there was a deal for him or whether or not it got, he said no to one or another. The reality of it is you knew his name was out there a lot, and he acknowledged that yesterday. And so to sit there and say, look, I went to my teammates and coaches and said, this is where I want to be and I want to see this through. I got to think that that's a really proud moment for him as one of the older, real veteran and the true leader of this team as captain. So I think it's just neat to watch. I think it's really neat to watch when you get to see it every day because you do see the ups and downs of every single day. And at the end of a season, you can look back at the whole picture, and it's a good picture right now.
Hey, Curbs, it's been an unbelievable ride. Been wonderful to be able to hear you on the call for all of it. Appreciate the time as always. Looking forward to talking with you again next week. Hopefully, depending on how the scheduling works out, we'll either see you out there at Enterprise Center or we'll be talking to you right here on 101 ESPN, potentially talking about where the Blues are at in this series against Winnipeg. Appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy this call in the postseason.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Yep. 16 teams have had to go home, and the Blues aren't one of them, so let's keep playing.
You love to see it. All right, Curbs, appreciate the time. As always, it's Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll finish up the show with the BK and Ferrario Rewind with a little bit of a twist today, Alex. We're going to go ahead and play that montage that T-Bone had at the beginning of the show for you guys. One more opportunity. Too good, can't not play it twice. We'll let you hear that next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. It's time to unlock your inner champion. There's one place to do it. It's Victory Men's Health. If you have not checked them out yet, today is the day to do it. You can find them online at victorymenshealth.com. And when you go over there, you'll be able to see all of the different things that they can offer for you to unlock that inner champion. That means different things for different people. For you, maybe it is about weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. It's been difficult to do so on your own. Well, they can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health. Could be low testosterone, erectile dysfunction issues that you're dealing with, or maybe you just want to get some more vitality. You want some help with some of your hydration needs. If you're having, it's getting warm again, you've got a run going on this weekend. It's going to be a long one. Vitamin infusions. They've got a supplement shop. They've got red light therapy programs. They even have cardiovascular testing. They've got a lot to offer over at Victory Men's Health. They can help you unlock your inner champion. That is the place to do so, is Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and check them out online at victorymenshealth.com. That's all we've got for you guys today. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, or the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers presents that as always. T-Bone had a fantastic open for the show today, and if you guys missed it, I want you to have the opportunity to hear it. So we're going to play that for you in its entirety to finish out the show today. You guys enjoy yourself today. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's next. But first, T-Bone's open for the show today. You're going to want to hear this.
This one's going to mercifully come to an end. Man, oh man. Ottawa Senators beat the Blues by a score of 8-1. Boston has the puck, and that'll do it. Blues fall to the Bruins 3-2, and they've lost 3 in a row. Peterka in now with the extra man back on for Buffalo to the wing, and they score. Bennington dove over, but just couldn't get there. And the Buffalo Sabres get the overtime power play goal.
I think Ferrario got to quit living in fantasy land because this isn't a playoff team. And I can't believe they thought that going into the season looking at this roster.
This one's going to end for the St. Louis Blues. Washington exploded in that second and third period. Takes it to the Blues by a score of 8-1.
Drew Bannister are clearly frustrated.
We're here to discuss the hiring of Jim Montgomery as the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. We're excited to have Jim part of our staff. It's a good day for the Blues.
I think Drew Bannister's lack of success here isn't necessarily because Drew Bannister's a bad coach, because it's a bad roster.
Oilers are in. McDavid dangles down low, far wing, they score. Connor McDavid magic strikes again, and the Edmonton Oilers are going to win in overtime.
I feel like we're talking about this team as if they're on the cusp of a playoff spot. They're not. They are 3 points away from picking today in the top 5. The Blues this year are playing like a rebuilding team.
And I also think last night's game was a reminder they belong in the have-nots category. They've played the Avalanche, dominated them.
McCarr in, wrist shot, score! 4-0 Colorado.
Dallas dominated them.
Blues are shut out for the first time in the season.
And the Blues, they don't belong in that tier. You know, they belong in that final tier when you look at it and say, hey, maybe it could have been a team for that last wild card spot. But because you happen to hit this stretch of some of these best teams in the Western Conference, they just smacked you right back down to where you're now looking way up at the Calgary Flame.
I'm not sure if Robert Thomas is going to be the type of player that you can win a cup with as your number 1 center.
Down to 3 seconds left, and the time will tick off. That's the third straight game the Blues have had to pick 4 goals out of their net.
The amount of games where you've got to find a way to get points down the stretch, it's like 20 plus. I say all of that to say this. This team ain't making the playoffs, man. It's over. It's time to face reality that this is just, it's not a good enough team. They dug themselves too big of a hole.
You just go day by day right now, and we play Winnipeg and we play Colorado Saturday, Sunday. Like, the reality is we got to get 4 points. We haven't won 3 in a row. We have to win 3 in a row by the time the trade deadline comes, or you know, you're going to just run out of runways.
I asked Joe Boo to come. Take fear. I offer him cigar and rum. He will come.
Bolduc, a partial break. He shoots, he scores! Zach Bolduc, a breakaway goal. 5 seconds comes off the clock, and that'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. 4-1 win tonight for the Blues over the LA Kings. And the Blues have won 4 games in a row. Buchnevich to Kyrou, to the empty net. Hat trick goal. If you've got a hat, chuck it at your radio. To the line for Suter. He drives, it's loose in front. They score! Bravo Buchnevich. Back to the lineup and gives the Blues the lead. 4 seconds left. They put it on front to McCarr. They shoot. Save Bennington and bring out the Zamboni. 9 games in a row won by the Blues. They snapped the Avs 11-game home winning streak.
Kyrou pass off the skate of Dylan Holloway to break it. A big hit by Jordan Kyrou as he knocks to break it down. Thomas over to Fowler by himself. Back in. He scores! Cam Fowler, the 2-on-1, goes top shelf on Cam Talbot, and the Blues extend their win streak to 10 games.
I don't say this lightly. It is unbelievable. It is difficult to fathom what we have witnessed.
Kyrou skates in, drops it off to Thomas. Thomas takes a shot, he scores! Robert Thomas, the overtime winner, as the Blues
Stick checks it loose. Buchnevich score! What a play by Snuggerud. Buchnevich has been a monster in this game. 2 seconds left. That'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni and put 12 wins on it. Fans in St. Louis showed up. Blues brought the season back from the brink. And you can bring out the Zamboni. They beat the Utah Hockey Club 6-1. They earn a trip to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They'll face off against the Winnipeg Jets. And the St. Louis Blues will have a chance to win the Cup this year.
I am feeling like a Stanley Cup is in our destiny. I am feeling a parade down Market Street, T-Bone.
Yeah!